Hello, people of the internet. This is Andres Perez, aka KaijuNoir, here with another podcast movie review on a topic that I don't think I've ever really talked about much on this channel, but given that it is a franchise that I am definitely a big fan of, and I've recently have come to befriend three amazing individuals that I've always wanted to collaborate with on this channel here, I thought it'd be the perfect opportunity to discuss Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 Thrice Upon a Time, the final installment in the rebuild of Evangelion pseudo-remake retelling of the 1995 world-renowned, widely praised, very influential anime series. Even if you're not an Evangelion fan, Evangelion is one of those franchises that you've at least heard of or have seen some kind of iconography, whether it's the characters, the robots, the music, what have you. So, to discuss the final installment of Evangelion as a whole, potentially, I decided to bring on three guests for this collaboration. First up is someone that I originally approached for this collaboration. He is a up-and-coming filmmaker all the way from New York. It is Mr. Yoko Higuchi.
Hey, how's it going? Thank you, Andres, for having me on this podcast, and I'm super excited to talk about Eva.
Absolutely. and the last pairing, but certainly not least, they are the hosts of the Review Roulette podcast, a series that I've had the pleasure of being on multiple times. Give it up for Lora and Nick.
What's happening?
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely, yes. It is great to have all of you guys here together. I've met these guys originally through Matt Burkett's Monstrosities After Dark live streams, and since then we've had numerous conversations, and I even had the chance to meet Yoko in person earlier this year. When the brief time that you were able to come to Japan, and we just hung out. Visited Toho Studios, Ultraman Street, and even checked out that Evangelion animation exhibit, where we got to check out a lot of those sketches and concept art from these exact movies that we're going to be discussing here. So
yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to Evangelion, like I said, it's a big franchise that has been incredibly prominent throughout not just the anime community, but just, I want to say, like, Japanese entertainment as a whole. Like, during the roughly half a decade that I've lived in Japan, I haven't seen a franchise as prevalent as Evangelion, where it's one of those, like, rare franchises that people from multiple generations have heard of. And when it comes to the Japanese pop culture landscape, I've noticed that younger generations tend to sort of ignore older franchises and only focus on the latest and greatest. Meanwhile, with Evangelion, it's one of those few franchises that I've noticed have been able to cross through generational barriers. I remember I recently talked to a student of mine. For those who don't know, I am a conversational English teacher, and I have one student who is a high school freshman, and she is like a big time Evangelion fan. She saw the movie in theaters multiple times. She saw it when it premiered on Amazon multiple times. We've had a few conversations about that. So, like, even for, again, whether you're in your teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, everyone has at least heard of Evangelion. Even whenever my friends and I would go out for karaoke, someone will always play the Eva theme, and everyone would have a good time. When it came to my personal experience with Evangelion, I never really got into it. I never really heard of it or never really familiarized myself with it up until 2013. That was around the time Guillermo del Toro's film Pacific Rim was coming out. And for whatever reason, the anime community kept making a lot of comparisons to Evangelion because they share the similar premise of humans building giant robots to fight giant monsters, even though I personally think that's a silly comparison, given how giant robots fighting giant monsters is something that goes all the way back to the 70s with the likes of Mazinger Z and Getter Robo and stuff like anime like that. But I was curious enough to check it out, to finally eventually check it out, and I saw it. And it was definitely a series that was very different from most shows that I was used to at the time. The biggest thing that got my attention was it wasn't a show where characters. It didn't feature the traditional sense of character progression, or whether it's a series that sort of breaks down its characters emotionally, physically, especially mentally. And it's almost like character degression, but in a very fascinating, like psychological, analytical, psychological way. At first, I wasn't really for it, but then as I started living in Japan, I started gaining a new appreciation for it upon a second rewatch. And so I see Evangelion, like my personal opinion on Evangelion as a whole is that it's unlike most people where they would say, oh, it's some sort of meta commentary on religion or whatever. I tend to see it as a commentary on Japanese culture, Japanese society, or rather, it's sort of like looking at, it's just a simple story. As crazy as Eva can be, it's mostly a simple story on characters dealing with societal pressures and being forced upon these great responsibilities that they are in no way ready for. Physically or mentally capable of having such great responsibilities, and also having a large, like a journey of characters experiencing various different kinds of isolation and them yearning for genuine human connections. And having understood as much as I could about Japanese culture, Japanese society, I've suddenly realized just what makes Evangelion so appealing for Japan. I can't speak on behalf of everyone else around the world, but I feel like Evangelion, for a Japanese audience, is the most relatable anime ever, potentially. And that's what I believe has made it last so long in the Japanese pop culture zeitgeist. And perhaps despite that, the director Hideaki Anno, like mostly, I'm assuming that he took a lot of his own personal experiences and put them into Eva. Despite Eva being like kind of influenced by Japanese culture, I feel like the themes of Eva are relatable enough that people from any country, any culture, any society can relate to the themes of Eva. Again, isolation, human connections, pain, grief, tragedy. All these things are themes that are sort of relatable to anyone. Of course, Ava's not for everyone. There are certainly people who are not big fans of it. Some may even detest it, but that's perfectly fine. But it feels like for the majority of people, there is something there that people have really latched onto. And that's what led us to the Rebuild movies, which I have definitely enjoyed. I remember, again, I got into Eva around 2013, so I think it was around 2014 or 15 I ended up watching these movies and have thoroughly enjoyed them for what they are, a different approach, a different take on Evangelion. And so just waiting on this fourth movie has been quite a journey. Not as big of a journey as for people who had watched Evangelion 3.0 back in 2012, where it's been almost 10 years since then. But I am certainly happy for fans who have been there since the beginning, or people who have been involved in this fan base earlier than me, far longer than me, to finally get the chance to watch this final installment. So since that I have given my overall thoughts on Eva as a whole, I'd like to pass the mic off to Yoko here so that you can share with us your history and your thoughts on Eva up to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So I first came in contact with Evangelion when I was 14 years old, which is the same age as the main character, Shinji. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty eye-opening for me. It was actually the first Rebuild movie that was handed to me by my cousin. And he said, oh, you'll like this. And evidently I did. And then after I saw the first Rebuild movie, he was like, oh, well, there's also a TV show. And I watched the entirety of the TV show, and I was in love with it. But it did have a very controversial ending. Mm-hmm. It was very avant-garde and different, and clearly there was a lack of funding at the end of the production of Neon Genesis, so it did cause some very interesting decisions, let's say. Depending on your opinion, that could be a good or bad thing. But it did leave me hungry for something more, because the ending, while on an emotional level very well put together and well told, on a narrative level, it didn't complete a lot of the character arcs I was looking into, because it didn't have a proper ending for Rei, Asuka, Misato. So I was wondering what came after, because I've seen the Rebuild movie, and then I stumbled upon the end of Evangelion, and that just blew me away. I love that movie with all my heart, and that's the movie that made me want to be a filmmaker. That's the one that really solidified that notion for me that I wanted to be a storyteller. So I credit a lot of my my works to that specific film. And then I rewatched 1.0, and 2.0 was already out, and 3.0 was coming out. It was in the process of being made. So I remember it came out in 2012 in November, I believe, and I was waiting for some kind of DVD or digital release of it. And and in New York City, they have this Japanese video rental store for some reason. It's in my neighborhood. And they have all these like movies. I'm like, okay. And I asked them, do you have Evangelion 3.0? And they were waiting for it to come on DVD. So I was constantly checking the news and figuring out when it was being released, and then it was released, and it was, high time to finally watch it. I was waiting almost, I don't know, like 2 or 3 years to see it, because since it came out in November of 2012, I must have seen it in the first half or the beginning of the second half of 2013. So same as you, actually, Andres. And I saw it, and I was utterly confused.
Yes. I guess I should mention that like 1.0 and 2.0 are rough summarizations of, like, let's say the first half of the anime series. Meanwhile, 3.0 is when they go off the rails completely and decide to go in a post-apocalyptic direction.
It just takes like a turn, and I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
14 years, huh? Oh, okay. Woo! That's something. Okay.
Ooh-wee!
Yeah, ooh-wee! The whole time I was just like, oh, geez, Rick, I don't know about this movie.
Oh, geez, Dad!
Shut up, Yoko!
Mr. Ano in the front seat, he's like, shut up!
Shut up!
Oh, geez, Mr. Ano!
Oh, geez, Ano, I don't know about this
Are you
one.
my uncle or my dad?
I honestly, for years and years and years, I didn't know if I liked the movie or not. And I think as I grew up, I began to like it more and more from a filmmaking standpoint. The filmmaking in it is actually like pretty incredible. Like the visual language in it is really, really good. So
especially the music, the score, man.
The music is great. Yeah, like he like snapped on the soundtrack for that. So there's a lot of like technical aspects in 3.0 that I ended up really appreciating as I got older and older. But yeah, I waited for 9 years for this last movie, and as I was on Shin Godzilla, there was that thought of like, okay, but when? Like when is it? Like, Anno, you're doing this one, but like when?
I guess,
please.
I guess because we're not on the Monstrosity channel, we should give some context.
Oh right, yes, we should.
I was just on a Godzilla movie.
Right? So you worked on a Godzilla movie, specifically Shin Godzilla.
I did. I was a production assistant on Shin Godzilla, which is famously co-directed by Anno and Higuchi, the guys who started Evangelion in the first place. And it was such an honor to be there. Not only is it a Godzilla movie, but it's also like from the duo that made Evangelion. So it was a double whammy for me as a filmmaker and a fan. So it was such a blast. But I did have that thought every time I saw him like walk by Toho. I just thought,
You could be doing something.
Yeah, there's another project.
There goes God right there passing by me.
There goes Jesus. There he goes. He's so tall.
It's like a Shin movie without like Eva. Like if you were not aware of what Eva was, like that soundtrack would just be like, "Oh, this is amazing." It's like a lot of this is just Eva music.
Dun 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 dun.
The greatest piece of music.
Yes.
Yeah, but it really was a crazy journey to get here, and there were so many times where I did think, like, is this even coming? I don't even know if this is if it's ever coming out.
Because sorry to interrupt you, I even joked.
No, please.
I even joked with you at one point. It's like I often refer to this movie as Evangelion 4.0. You cannot finish.
Yeah, you cannot finish.
Yeah, because like the titles for these movies are also weird because in Japan they're called Shin Evangelion. So it's like Shin Evangelion Jo, Shin Evangelion Ha, Shin Evangelion Q, and then Shin Evangelion musical repeat sign. Yeah. For those who don't know,
weird.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Jo Ha Q, that's like the equivalent of like beginning, middle, and end for like Japanese storytelling. So for us in America, we got Evangelion 1.0, you are not alone. Evangelion 2.0, you cannot advance. Evangelion 3.0, you cannot redo. And then for the longest time, people called the last one Evangelion 4.0, Evangelion Final. And then they come out with the most pretentious sounding title, Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 thrice upon a time.
Because a long title.
Yeah, thrice upon a time, referring to the fact that this is technically the third time this story has concluded. There's the TV ending, the end of Evangelion movie, which replaces the TV show's ending, and then finally this one that finishes that is the ending for the Rebuild series. And
it makes more sense in Japan. Like that makes more sense than what we got.
Right, yeah. Beginning, middle, and repeat, which is like kind of like the cycle of storytelling. You finish one story, you start another story.
Yeah.
And I guess like to help with certain people, newcomers to Evangelion, there are technically 6 movies out there. There's Evangelion Death and Rebirth, but Death and Rebirth is a glorified clip show of the anime with some new scenes added here and there, I believe. I never seen Death and Rebirth. I'm not a fan of clip show movies, compilation movies.
It's a weird movie because Death and Rebirth has 2 parts to it, the Death part and the Rebirth part, and Death is a clip show of the original with the director's cuts animation like spliced in, and they also reanimated certain scenes to make it look closer to the end of Evangelion.
So it wasn't just the Platinum collection added scenes?
No, it's like it's like a slightly different version of certain sequences, and then the Rebirth part is the first 20 minutes of end of Evangelion.
Okay, so that's not confusing at all whatsoever.
No, not at all.
I feel like maybe like Death and Rebirth is perhaps like, not the least essential movie because there's just like, the anime. And then there's End of Evangelion, which is, again, the alternate ending that replaces the last 2 episodes of the TV series. And then finally, there's the Rebuild movies, which is 4 of them.
Yeah.
Hopefully that solves any confusion there. Probably not. Anyway, sorry, please continue, Yoko.
Oh, yeah. So it was a bit of a journey to get to this point, and we heard about Anno's depression after 3.0, and then obviously he did Shin Godzilla as part of like his healing process, and he did like several other things in between that. So it was a long time coming, and people were complaining on the internet about like certain other franchises not having films out quickly, and I was always like, I'm an Eva fan. You can't be complaining.
You're like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, like I've been waiting for 10 years. Like,
quit your bitching.
At most you were waiting like 3 years. How dare you? That's like a short time for me. So I was like resentful for like other fan communities that were like, oh my god, it's taking so long for this sequel. Screw you. Get the fuck out of here.
That's when your inner New Yorker comes out. Get the fuck out of here.
Fuck out of here. I'm waiting for Ava here.
I'm waiting here.
But yeah, it was crazy. And then, again, it kind of felt like a curse because we finally got a release date in 2020, and like I bought my plane tickets and I had all this stuff set up, and then COVID happened, and then all of that was canceled. And then I believe in October they released the new release date for January, and I was like, okay, here we go, plane tickets, plans. All right, cool. And then in January, it was delayed again. Had to cancel all my hotels and my airplanes. And then suddenly in I think it was the end of February, they were like, oh yeah, March. But I mean,
yeah. They just announced out of the blue. Yeah. It's like, oh, by the way, once this second or third
in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Just as soon as this new lockdown is finished, we're just gonna release it immediately before the next lockdown. Before the next lockdown happens.
I'm like, that's impossible. Guys, I need to plan shit. You can't do this to me right now. I gotta.
So you don't understand. We want to specifically screw over this particular guy.
This
over
fucking
here.
guy.
This fucking guy.
This fucking guy. So even that too. Even that too. It was building upon the agonizing waits. I just kept going fuck, and then you and I kept joking of this movie keeps getting pushed back, so I never get to see it.
Yes.
So it's okay, I'll never get to watch this movie. Okay, sure. But then, finally I was able to go to Japan, and I saw it in theaters, I believe 6 times when I was over there, and it was just...
Are you sure you saw it enough?
No,
you probably needed more times. It's I didn't understand that 1 minute from
Let me go back and watch it.
I didn't quite understand. Pick up that one bit of...
At the 45-minute mark, that one line. But yeah, in my opinion, it was so worth the wait, and it was such an experience to be in Japan, to watch it in theaters. Although it wasn't the opening, weekend, and because I think my ultimate dream was to watch it with a room of Ava fans. That's what I wanted to see, but it's COVID, everything got screwed up, so it's fine. Mm-hmm. But I was just so happy and blessed to actually be there and watch in theaters, because I've never seen a Ava film in theaters. Mm-hmm. Oh wait, I did. Weirdly enough, Andres, you brought this up, but I was at New York Comic Con when they debuted the English dub.
Yes,
of 3.0.
The now infamously lost English dub. The original English dub. Okay.
So it's your fault that we had to wait.
Yes.
Right.
Were you one of those fuckers?
It's your fault.
No, I was like, woo, this is awesome. Yeah. So I don't know what everyone else was saying. I don't know. I was having a blast.
They were loud. Isn't that what it was, Andres? It was just that there was a reaction, and they were just oh, this is wrong.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm sorry to interrupt you again, Yoko.
No, please.
Okay. So I do want to give more context. I found this to be a really fascinating story. So this is this particular event at New York Comic Con was what impacted the franchise in terms of localization going forward. So the movie Evangelion 3.0 came out in 2012, and then soon afterwards, Funimation provided an English dub, like they always did, and they premiered it at New York Comic Con, where a bunch of Ava fans went wild and crazy over it because A, it was a batshit insane movie, and 2, the English dub was leaning really hard into the Shinji Kaworu shipping stuff, where they took double entendres and turned them into triple entendres. Yeah, it's they went full on hardcore. We're making this dub for the fans, and so everyone was going crazy over various factors because how could you not react to a movie that insane? Also, it's a convention. It's a bunch of rowdy American anime fans. They're going to have the time of their lives. It's kind of like when any of us were to get to, you and your friends get together to have like a movie night. People are sure to have fun riffing the movie, enjoying the movie, cheering the movie. Yeah. In Japan, none of that shit happens. None of that ever goes down. You go into a movie theater, everyone is quiet. Everyone is respectful. Everyone stays until the very end of the credits. No one cheers. No one hollers. No one claps. No one applauses. No standing ovation. No one laughs. Even if it's a comedy, no one laughs. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So when you got like the head of Studio Kara, who are the people behind this movie, a lot of people think it's Gainax. Gainax did the TV series, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Yoko.
Yeah.
But when it came to the Rebuild movies, that Anno kind of left Gainax. Created the Rebuild series and essentially created his own studio to be in charge of these new movies. So there was a representative from Studio Kara there at New York Comic Con watching the premiere, and he freaked the fuck out at everyone's reaction because he was not aware that this is just a normal thing for us Americans. So he was under the belief that people did not like the movie, and he's like, why did they not like the movie? It must be the translation. It must be inaccurate.
They don't understand.
They don't understand. This is a serious movie. So they ended up, Studio Kara ended up telling Funimation to scrap that dub completely, and that from now on, which goes on to this very day, Studio Kara is in charge of providing and approving the official English translations, despite the fact that nobody at Kara is a fluent native speaker. So for anyone who is wondering why the new English version on Netflix currently of the Evangelion TV series, why that is really wonky, that's exactly why. Because they don't have American native speakers in charge of that. They got Japanese people trying to dictate how characters in English are supposed to sound.
It's all Yoko's fault.
Yes. So
it all leads back to me.
So for a movie that came out in 2012, 3.0 did not come out until 2016, nearly 4 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, that was rough. But it was crazy because I remember that day, like, we all watched the movie, and then Spike Spencer came out and did a Q&A afterwards, so it was a blast.
For those who don't know, he is the English voice actor for Shinji.
Yes.
Oh.
And I have like a poster and everything. It's somewhere in my room, but like they were handing out like Comic-Con exclusive like posters for 3.0, and I believe it had like the date of the Blu-ray. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but like I remember getting a poster.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I know
on that night.
Posters where it's just like, this is the date it's coming out. We're like, no.
You misunderstood.
Oh.
And then I guess Funimation lost it because it's on Amazon Prime now. So I guess they don't have the licensing for it, right? Yeah, I guess.
Huh. Okay. It's like, that's it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, cool.
And like,
all of the Blu-rays are like out of print now, apparently.
Oh God, no, no.
Apparently, I saw a tweet about it from, I believe, Ava Monkey, but like the 1.0 and 2.0 Blu-rays were like out of print or something.
Yeah,
I might be wrong, but like that's what I saw.
Oh yeah, they're out of. Yeah, they're gone.
Yeah, because I looked at like, because I was trying to see if there was like a little set that had like a nice little collection of 1.0 and 2.0 or 3.0, and it's nothing. It's just those original cuts. Like, I'm glad I still have the original.
Wow.
One, but
that's the weird thing about Eva. Like, there's no way to like just like I know it's on Netflix now, and like obviously it's on Amazon Prime, but like before that, there was no way to just like it was never on TV. Anybody who loved it, they found it through like some weird like it was either their cousin who sent them when they're 14, or they randomly found it through some weeds. Like that speaks so much loudly about this show, where it's just like people they had to find it and then they had to love it and then they had to find more of it. Like
wasn't it on like Toonami at some point?
Like they had to love Eva. Like they had to like cultivate that experience for themselves, or like that's what interesting thing about this show.
I'm not quite sure if Evangelion was ever on Toonami. I don't remember it, but I wouldn't be surprised. What?
It was not.
Not.
It was not. Okay.
It feels like it would be fit as a Toonami show during that
feels
era.
like
during that era with like Trigun, Big O.
Big O, yeah, Big O!
It's showtime!
We had looked into it. I don't think there was ever some sort of like release.
I know ADV was the original distributors of Evangelion, as well as a ton of anime back in the 90s. They released a lot of VHSs and eventually, DVDs. For a long time, Evangelion was ADV's cash cow, and so they kept re-releasing it, a few times. And eventually, once ADV went bankrupt, I think, and they went under, a part of ADV still exists and still held on to the DVD rights, or the home release rights to Evangelion. And that's why once AVD went out of business and those DVDs went out of print, no one was legally allowed to release Evangelion in the States after that.
Right.
Which is like really, really bizarre. And also, ADV was also trying to fund a live-action Evangelion movie, which you can check out TitanGoji's video talking about how that project sort of fell apart. I believe like Weta Studios was attached at one point.
Yes. Oh, that would have been great.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, unfortunately, of course, here we are living 20 years later in 2021, no movie in sight.
I mean, listen, I'll work hard on it. I'll get to it.
Are you gonna get that your favorite actress involved? She's gonna play Asuka?
I mean, listen, you know what?
First.
Never say never, you know what I mean? Hey, Anya, do you want to play a Japanese character? That won't be offensive at all. Don't worry.
Don't worry. She's half German. She's half German.
Yeah, she's half German. Don't.
Go with the Langley Soryu version.
I can already see her with the eye patch. I'm already excited. It's great.
So, anyways, any final thoughts on Eva?
Oh, no,
Yoko?
it's just that it was such a great journey being an Eva fan. It's been 12 years now since I've been exposed to it and been loving the show this entire time. And it's been a really wild, tumultuous ride. But at the end of the day, they really stuck that landing. So I couldn't be happier. So it was just awesome to see everything come together in the end.
Wonderful. I bet you, like, all this time, Anno was playing the long game, and he was like, now you understand my pain, my suffering.
He was Gendo and I was Shinji, and and then he hugged me at the very end by releasing the movie, and I was like, yes, Anno. Yes.
One last thing I also wanted to bring up is your good old Uncle Shinji Higuchi.
My good old Uncle Shinji.
He's not your uncle, you just so happen to have the exact same last name. Which led to...
Yes, it's not nepotism, I promise. I swear to God, it's not nepotism.
You did not legally change your name?
No, I did not legally change my name, nor did I seek out him because we have the same last name. I love how I have to explain this, numerous times to so many people, and still people are like, yeah. I'm like, no. Believe me, please.
We've seen photos of you guys hanging out. We've literally seen you two in the same room in this case.
Right. Multiple times too. So it's not a good look for me.
I was watching it on Facebook because essentially, I think I saw a post of him asking you a question, and you're like, "Oh my God, Google Translate is translating this. I'm here. I'm doing this." I'm like, "Is that really him? Like he's really Facebook friends with?"
Is that he was Uncle Higuchi?
The Uncle Higuchi.
Hey-ho!
I think on one of the posts he was like, "Where are you?" Because he
That's what I saw. Like, is this a real dude?
Oh, I remember what it was. I posted a picture that I bought the Shin Ultraman toys.
Yeah.
And then he commented on that one, and I think he asked, "Where are you?" And I was like, I'm here, and I'll be in
Where
touch
are
with you
you?
soon. Where are you? He's got me on the shoulders. Where are you, Yoko?
What is your hotel room number?
When the fuck did you get here? How did you get here?
This is
I have
about
dual
family.
citizenship. That's how I got in. I swear to God, it wasn't a crime. It wasn't a crime, I swear.
Nephew Yoko, where are you?
I swear I'm here legally.
I'm here legally, I swear to God. I did my 2-week quarantine, I did it.
It was so funny being like, because I'm friends with you, but I'm not a huge Eva fan, but my husband is, and so I'm just like showing him, I'm like, Yoko is literally just chilling out with Shin Higuchi. Like,
Don't rub it in his face. Don't do that.
So I was just like showing him, like, hey, look, like, we know somebody who's just like, oh yeah, this is my bro.
It's like 2 degrees. What's it called? 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Now it's just it's gonna be 6 degrees of Shinji Higuchi. No, hold on. 6 degrees of Ano now because of that connection.
That's right. I did give him his lunch, so that's a big deal.
I was trying to explain to somebody your crepe story with the.
Oh my god! Oh my god! I feel like that story's gonna come back to haunt me.
Should we go into it, Yoko?
Sure. I'll keep it very brief. So, one of the actresses in Shin Godzilla, I keep forgetting her name, even though she's so great. I just keep forgetting her name.
I don't know her name. I know her crepe order.
I know what crepe she likes.
She likes the banana split crepe or something.
Yeah. She's a banana kind of girl, yeah.
The banana. So as a PA on Shin Godzilla, I have to help out on set. So I'm doing a whole bunch of various tasks. And on one certain day, they had this crepe truck at Toho Studios, and I was taking orders from everyone on the crew. So I had everything written down, and I walk over to the crepe truck, and I realize I'm screwed because the crepe truck menu is in Japanese, but I myself, I can only speak, I can't read or write. So I just stood in front of the crepe truck, and God bless the dude at the truck. And bless the dude at the truck, because his patience level was so, because I was like, do you have the strawberry chocolate? And also, okay, cool, you got that. Do you also have the, let me see here, the chocolate, vanilla, whatever? Yeah. And it just took forever. And then from the corner of my eye, I see someone kind of looking at me, and I think she, and it was this actress. She plays a biologist in Shin Godzilla, and I guess she saw me struggling.
She plays Ray in Shin Godzilla.
Wait, she's Laptop Girl, right?
Yeah, she's Laptop Girl. There we go. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And she was kind of watching me struggle, and she, walks up to me and she asks, not what are you doing, because that's too direct, but it was what are you doing, but with the emotion of do you need help? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And Andres, you're in Japan, so there's that expression where it's in between those two lines. So she asked me that, and I was like, and I was so stupid to be so blunt. I was like, I'm trying to order crepes, but I can't read the menu. And she looked at me as if I was an idiot, because I look like this. I look like a Japanese man.
How dare you be brown?
So I look like
I never learned to read.
Yes, I'm an illiterate. I can't read. And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, right." And then I had to do my bit where I have to explain sorry, I'm an American. I am Japanese, but I'm from New York.
You switch your voice. Excuse me.
Ma'am.
My name is Yoko.
The name's
I need these crepes to go. I need these crepes to go.
I need them scrambled.
Yeah, but she was very confused, and she looked at my name tag and she read, and I guess what's more confusing is if you're an American and you have let's say your name is Thomas Anderson, they will spell out Thomas Anderson in katakana, in Japanese,
Andosen or something.
Exactly. But I have the full kanji name, so that makes it worse because it makes me look more like a Japanese person, but I'm clearly an American guy. So it was a very entertaining experience and story, but ever since I told that story on my live stream for the Shin Godzilla commentary, I feel like Davis TitanGoji just took it upon himself to make the crepe trucks a bit now. So the crepe trucks will now follow me wherever I go. So I will forever be haunted by this story.
Banana.
Of course, we're going to be at G-Fest, and we're just going to see him driving a crepe truck.
Anybody want
All the
to
way from Texas to Chicago.
I'm like, oh my god.
I
So,
know
ladies and
that
gentlemen, that is the
Davis.
crepe story.
Yeah.
Yay!
The crepe story.
I got workout crepes.
Yeah. I got
Diet
Coke
crepes.
Diet crepes.
Got full crepes.
So, moving on to Laura and Nick. So, what are your guys' thoughts, feelings, experience, history with Evangelion?
I apologize, by the way. Like, my segment was so long.
No, it's all
I
right.
apologize.
No, you.
Mine will be short. Yeah. I feel bad because essentially, like, it's all of these hardcore Eva fans, and I feel like I'm just the way that Nick could be here. It's just like, oh yeah, Andres knows Laura, and then like Nick really loves Eva. But yeah, I remember the first time I watched the show was my husband showing me when we were dating, and I still remember this where it's just like we finished watching it, and I think he looked at me like all ready to be like, you watched the show, it changed your life, and I'm like, that was a good show. That was cool. Yeah,
You know what,
I
Nick?
think
The
that's
fact that she didn't leave is a sign.
Yeah, that's a very good sign.
The sign
I
she's a
think there was
keeper.
hope.
Yeah, that's a keeper.
Yeah, no, I remember walking into his bedroom and there's this scroll of like, what is it? It's like there was the Evas, but it had Mari in it, so it wasn't the show.
Yeah, because I had to have a new wall scroll at the time, so I had I believe it was the Rebirth 2.0.
Yeah.
There was a wall scroll where
So
I had.
I walk into this man's room, he's just got Eva scrolls everywhere, and I'm like, I guess I'm gonna marry this man. I guess.
My man. My
Yeah.
man, Nick. My man.
Yeah, so yeah, I felt bad because he showed me the show and he was very excited for me to be like, oh my god, this is amazing, which I think I've likened to like when I show people Godzilla, where I'm just like waiting for them to be like, oh my god, you've changed my life, where it's just like, hey, it's a dude. But yeah, I have grown to love the show because after watching it the first time, I was just like, oh, that's cool. But then like I feel like it took me the second time of watching the show, and then I watched the Rebuild. Like I feel bad because I have to like ask him because he essentially just showed me all these.
I believe we watched Rebuild first and then went into the show.
Yeah, because he showed me a specific order, and then he was just like, "Oh yeah, these are like my DVDs that I can't sell because like he has like the silver DVD, he's got the black DVDs, and he's got like all these different like Blu-rays." And I'm just like, this is a lot for somebody who likes a movie that has started since 1954 and spanned until now. But yeah, I like the show. Like it's one of those things where like I feel like after the second time, that's when it kind of sinks in. And you're like, there's so many implications. Like I think I've talked to like Yoko before, where I'm like, oh, there's so many weird like they're their mother inside of this thing. Like, what does this implicate? And you're like, I never thought about that before. But like, I have thought about it for days.
It's like, welcome to the club.
Yeah, like I it is very relatable, and any sort of like I feel like there's any character where you can find something where you're like, oh, that's me, and which is hard because for me, if not any of the main characters, like I find all of them annoying, and I don't like them, but I love them all at the same time. Like I'm not Shinji, I'm not Asuka. I'm just hanging out in the back, but it's just like, yeah, this is a very prestigious show. I don't know, not prestigious, but like it is weird to think about like Shin and not think about the music from the show that is in Shin, and that's something that is like transited over this. But yeah, it's like as somebody who's probably like the most recent Eva fan on the show, that's all my piece, and then I'll leave you to my hardcore fanboy husband.
Who, as we're recording, is wearing a Jet Jaguar t-shirt, which there is a Jet Jaguar homage in the TV show.
There is.
Jet Alone.
Yeah, Jet Alone.
like I said, I like the show. It took me a couple times to get into it, but I'd recommend it.
Oh,
and the music is.
I'm definitely right there. I'm definitely right there with you. Where it took me the second time to really fully appreciate what the intentions were behind this show.
Mm-hmm.
Did you fully watch it the second? Like, did you watch it and then being like, "Hey, this is good," but I feel like I didn't understand it.
Right. I was like, I could. Upon watching it the first time, I was like, I don't get why this is popular. I don't get why this people is seen as the greatest thing ever. And then, upon my second viewing of it, while I was in Japan, I was watching it with friends, other Americans who were teaching English with me. We all watched it together. Some of us, it was our first time. Some of us, like me, it was our second time. And it was then that I was like, I see the appeal now. I see I see the significance.
Yeah, because it's a weird thing where it's just like you feel like you shouldn't be able to relate to like, oh, there's this boy who's like the pinnacle of saving the earth. But, like, I'm Shinji. Like, I've been sad. I've been on a train before. It's just like...
I've been on a train before.
I listen to music sometimes.
I have headphones and a white shirt.
I did say I was the youngest person coming into this, and I'm essentially the gateway into my husband, Nick.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Nick,
Tell
us a thing or two about your history with Eva.
So I started by, I believe, I want to say, would it have even been Toonami that started Dragon Ball? There was something before, right? When it had,
It was on ABC Family. It was on the cartoon block of ABC.
When it was like the early, like, what would you even call it? Before it had the actual violence with Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball?
Oh, Deke. Okay, yeah, that era. So I want
Dragon Ball was on ABC Family. It was on the cartoon block.
To mid-90s?
Yes. Because I watched Dragon Ball before I knew anything about like cable TV. Like it was on it was either on ABC or NBC or Fox.
Okay.
You could watch Dragon Ball.
Because I remember first, it starts with me learning what anime even was, because I've always loved all cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
And then learning what anime was and going, oh, there's another country that makes all these other great animated shows. And then I had to find out there was a place in Las Vegas where I've lived like most of my life I'm from. They had like a local, like a Chinatown shop that would just have VHSs, and I just started like buying random ones with money I could save up, like for $45 per VHS for 3 episodes.
Welcome to the 90s.
Yeah, in the mid-90s. And I remember buying like I want to say the first set I bought that had Eva was I bought the first Eva set, and I think it was Ranma 1/2.
Okay.
Something around in that era. And then I just kind of I was like, I like the idea of like a giant robot kind of anime show. And that's what got me into liking Eva then. And I think it just
like
kind of...
anime in general, yeah.
Or yeah, well, yeah, anime in general and not just Dragon Ball, but like me going into Eva and realizing there was like more to this whole thing, that stories could be told in like a better, deep way. And I really attached onto Shinji. It's probably not the main character that everyone exactly attaches onto.
No, you are Shinji.
But I am.
Yeah. I like how it made you mad that we were able to buy the complete VHS set for the same price that you bought one tape.
Yes.
I bought all 13 tapes on eBay for like $25, and Nick was like, I bought that first tape for like $50.
But I remember like we would take a bus. I would take a bus every month. I would save up like and work extra mowing lawns and like go to the Chinatown to try and buy a few VHS tapes and slowly work my way through all of Eva. And when I finally got to watch that, then the DVD set came out in Suncoast, and I had to buy the black box version of that, which I still have.
Which he told me was like, this costs a lot. When you're dating somebody and they show you a DVD set and they're like, this costs a lot of money, you're like, I'm going to do that.
Don't you think I'm a cool?
This cost me 500 bad boys there.
it was really weird when he just had like this set of DVDs. There's this like silver box set and this black. He's like, this black set. It's cost a lot of money. I'm like, okay.
I remember, and I think that would have been like late 90s, me going to Suncoast and buying like the black box, and then Platinum Collection came out. And I've always loved the anime, and then I remember just randomly seeing, I think it would be Neo Type magazine.
Oh, New Type.
New Type. Thank you for saying it correctly.
Wait, is that the Gundam site? It turned into that?
It is. I know the name came from Gundam.
Okay.
But
that's like the your Gundam site to buy like your kits from is New Type.
Okay. I'm not familiar with New Type website nor the magazine, but I do know that it is a magazine that would feature a lot of anime related news.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Weird, yeah.
So that was me first finding out that there was a Rebuild anime coming out after me finally getting the DVD set, watching the show and the movies. And I want to say 2002, 2003, like right after I graduated high school, had my job. I bought like the magazine and I would just keep flipping through and trying to read about this Rebuild movie set that was coming out.
I guess
apparently it was a Gundam magazine. I had no clue.
Like that's the premiere. Like if you were like a Gunpla YouTuber, you have the New Type sponsorship. Is like what people have. But that was one of the things we were trying to figure out like before we were recording, because essentially you would say like we had to wait 10 years for this, but it was weird for me because essentially like he had showed me the show, and then like 3 years ago we had watched 1, 2, and 3 of the Rebuild. And then we had watched 3.1.4. I always feel bad because everyone's like, I waited 10 years for this. I'm like, I waited 4, but I guess that's the weird thing with the release of it. It was essentially, like you had said, like, this is horrible. We need this other thing. And it's like, maybe it was good before, but yeah, that's a weird thing. That's like, I feel bad almost because essentially as being an EVA fan, I had to have the pain that Yoko and Andres and Nick and I were
it's perfectly fine, because that is definitely the reason why I wanted to have you on as part of this podcast, Laura, because I thought it would be great to have various different kinds of perspectives on the Eva franchise. So we had people like Nick and Yoko who have been involved in this franchise the longest. Me, I've just jumped in the early 2010s, and you being like the most recent, I guess, fan. So it's like I thought it would be great to have differing perspectives on this franchise and the movie in question.
I mean, it shows a lot about the franchise that it can't have that level of fans. Like it just kind of like. I keep saying Godzilla because it's essentially like my other hardcore fan thing where it's just like, yeah, you can relate to it at different levels. So it's just like, I feel like some shows where you watch it now, it's just like, oh, that's old. Or it's just like, I feel like Eva, you can watch it now. And it's like, okay, like I can relate to that boy. I can relate to that girl.
That boy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that boy.
That boy.
So
it reminds me of Star Trek in that way where it's like, I wouldn't say it's so far much in the future, but like it's that much different evolved, but it's just about different character stereotypes.
It always seems one step away.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it always seems contemporary. Like it always seems just like, oh yeah, that could be now.
That it's more about the character and their development and arcs that you are able to actually connect with more.
Yeah,
which
is why I had problems with 3, but essentially I didn't have problems with 4.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, they definitely remove a lot of that slice of life elements from 3 compared to everything else in the franchise. So I guess this
I feel like they pushed way more on 4, where it's just like, this literally feels like, like, I feel like a lot of 4 is depending on, like, this is very slice of life. Like, this is much like
yeah, absolutely.
Like, you don't have to be Shinji to relate to this. It's like, you know what, the apocalypse happens, I'm still going to have a baby. I'm still going to live my life. I'm still going to do all the things that I need to do.
Yeah,
That's why I really love that movie.
Right, that's definitely like one of the biggest core messages of Evangelion, I feel, where it's like no matter how hard, like life is hard, life will suck. There are hardships to life, but the main message is that you can move past, not move past, but you can work through these problems And you can, you know, whether it's, you know, you're struggling with, you know, when it comes to relationships, or you have like mental health issues, or, you know, financial issues, any sort of issues that you have, there is a way to make it through these hardships that life will throw at you, and that it is possible for everyone to eventually make some sort of impactful, like have some sort of meaning and impactfulness in their life. It's like happiness, like no one is exempt from happiness. There is always a chance to work through the pain and improve yourself to become a better person. So no matter how hard life sucks, but it does get better. I definitely agree with there. I think this is like a really good transition into talking about the movie itself. I guess to briefly go over what happened in the previous movie, which is, you know, we've been hinting at that it just goes off the rails entirely. It's a complete shift in the status quo. So we're no longer dealing with humans, the military using giant robots piloted by teenagers to fight monsters. Rather, turns out that the military organization NERV, they find out they're the bad guys. A lot of the characters that we come to know and love, they have defected, been fighting the military. It's a big apocalypse caused by the main protagonist, Shinji, who had been in a coma for 14 years. Turns out if you pilot a giant robot, you don't age at all. And so he wakes up 14 years later in the third movie, realizing that everything is different, everything is fucked, most of the people on Earth is dead, and everyone hates him for accidentally kickstarting the apocalypse. And so it's just a lot of that movie, once a lot of that initial confusion is kind of done and over with, then a lot of the middle portion of the movie focused on Shinji and his budding relationship with Kawaru, a character from the TV series who was like the one person who attempted to make a genuine connection with Shinji, no strings attached. But much like the TV show, things don't end well with Kawaru, and that causes Shinji to fall into a deep depression, which leads into the events of this final movie. So with Shinji being in an almost catatonic state, similar to the beginning of End of Evangelion, we have Shinji, Asuka, and not Rei, because Rei is a supporting character who died at the end of the second movie, and we have what essentially is one of many, many clones of Rei. The three of them are picked up by returning characters from the TV series / previous movies. We see how a lot of the characters that were absent in the third movie, how they have lived their lives in the 14 years since Eva 2.0, and a good portion of the movie focuses on a very small town that features, as Lora mentioned, characters choosing to live their lives the way they want to and work with their issues, despite the fact that the rest of the world is a big apocalyptic hellscape. They still manage to find happiness and build this community, a strong community. And this is what I really loved about the movie, is that it offers an option for Shinji to heal, which is something that he was not given the opportunity to do in End of Evangelion. Because as soon as he fell into his depressive funk, that's when shit hit the fan. But here he is given time, he's given space, he's given the attention he needs to heal. And I love the approach to how they portrayed Shinji's depression, his clinical depression. As someone who knows people in real life close to me who have suffered with depression, I have seen, I guess you can say like a secondhand experience of how people tend to handle depression, and how it's not a very easy process, and it's something that takes a lot of time and energy, love and attention that would eventually help them to overcome this serious issue. And I thought that it was done in a very believable and realistic way for Shinji to eventually realize the situation that he's in, and come to the conclusion that where he wants to rectify or the mistakes that he has made, or try to make up for the mistakes that he has made. He cannot go back and change things. Rather, he can only try to move forward, which is, again, one of the many themes of Evangelion. So, what are your guys' thoughts on how? What are your guys' thoughts on how, like, the last movie ended and this first part of the movie?
Slaps. It just slaps. It's amazing.
I have like a quick thing where it's just like, I really like the whole like you cannot redo. Like I feel like that's a very good point where it's just like you can't fix things. Like you can only like you can't go back and fix things. You can only like fix things as they're going.
Yeah,
but it's like
you can't change the past, but you can change the future.
Yeah,
right.
That's why I don't like. I think I've told Andres before. Like I don't, or I have told KaijuNoir before. I don't like the third movie. I know that it has like implications on this, but I feel like if you could just watch 1, 2, and 4, like I feel like Shinji hearing that like, oh, nobody knows that you're the one that's caused this. Like I feel like that would have been more eye-opening for him. Like I feel like it's just like we don't know that this is your fault and you could fix it. And I feel like that would have been a more eye-opening thing for Shinji, as in like in 3 I feel like it's just nailing down all of these people are like, this is your fault, this is everything that is happening now is your fault. Where it's just like I feel like 4 is just like, oh yeah, like this I married the class president, we're together, we got some kids. Like, not what is Willie sent us this machine and we're just living our life, like we're like everything still is happening.
Mm-hmm.
That it would happen. I feel like if Shinji, I feel like him experiencing that as opposed to when Rei explodes, I feel like that's an interesting part of that. But it's really interesting watching 3 and then 4, because essentially 3 is just like, this is all your fault. Mm-hmm. Everything that is happening is your fault. And then 4 is like, oh yeah, I had a kid and it's fine. Like we made do. Like this is what life goes on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I do agree that like in comparison to 3 is very nihilistic in its tone and its approach. And I can only wonder what was going on with Anno's mental state as he was making this series, because as we've mentioned before that Anno did kind of recessed into a depressive slump, because when it comes to depression, it's not like a thing you cure and it goes away forever. It comes and goes in waves, much like how Shinji's own mental state throughout the original TV series. He has his high moments and low moments. For some people who are probably not aware of how depression works, people would say, oh, that's bad character writing, he's regressing, he has to relearn all this shit he had to learn the previous episode. But no, I feel like that is a major part of his mental state. And in real life, I'm wondering if Anno did fall back into an episode during depressive episode during the making of 3.0 before having time to heal, much like Shinji, in the roughly 10 years between 3.0 and the final movie.
I mean, it seems that way. If you watch the documentary on the making of 3.0 plus 1.0 on Amazon Prime now, in that documentary, Anno, I believe, writes a letter to the staff at Kara and says, this movie broke me, in reference to 3.0. So he clearly wasn't in a state of mind that was like he is currently. So thankfully he is healed, and it's very obvious that he's in a better place from just watching the tone of this last movie. You can very much tell it's a more hopeful movie. And I think it's interesting that 3.0 is taking place in that the post-apocalyptic aesthetic, because it does throw the characters in an entirely new situation, so you get to see them react in a different way. And I think the fault of the Rebuild movies that some people have perceived is that the Rebuild movies, at least 1 and 2, didn't do enough to justify its existence as a reboot per se. Because, Andres, you were mentioning before that 1.0 and 2.0 are basically summaries of different aspects of the original series, but done with new animation and some altered moments, like Asuka being in Unit 3 and not Toji, for example. But like the sequence for the most part plays out the same. But then you hit 3.0, and that's when you go, oh, that's why these movies were made. It was made to take a turn and alter from the show and take these huge risks. And I like the fact that Anno in the third movie just threw everything at the at the screen and was just like, here 14.
He was pulling he was like kind of like pulling a Rian Johnson before The Last Jedi. I'm gonna subvert everyone's expectations. You thought I was subverting expectations with Mari? Well, fuck you. Here's the post-apocalypse. Guess what?
He was subverting
freaking Misato. She's a fucking pirate now.
He was subverting the expectations of the subverted expectations. So that makes him like the double, triple subverted expectation. So it was like it was so nuts to see that third movie, and then leading into this one, I think I like having that. Like, it's not super negative or mean-spirited in that sense, but it is very like depressing, that third movie. It does leave you with that bittersweet ending of the three main characters just walking into this like wasteland.
It's the unknown.
Very, to the unknown. So it's like, oh god, like what's gonna happen after this? But then, you cut to this movie, and then off the bat, you see a older Toji, Kensuke, and Hikari, and you go, oh wow, like there's hope in this red wasteland of a world. So that's we're given like no clue as to what life is like on Earth in 3.0. So this gives a lot of important world building that was just completely absent for 3.0. Yeah, actual context.
I would say actually, like, knowing about like a little bit of mental health, like 3.0 actually has a fairly optimistic, because you don't know what's going on. It's not just like, yeah, they're dead, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
The show. So it's like, at least he had the mental capacity to be like, yeah, because it's like you can't cure depression. You just find better ways to live with it, or you find coping mechanisms in order for you to, like, you can't be like, oh, I'm magically happy now, this is great. It's like, I'm sure, like, I think we talked about this before, Anno, where it's just like, or like, I said Anno. I did it again.
Anno.
Anno. Yeah, no. I think we talked about like this last time, Yoko, where it's just like, we talked about like Anno's parents, where it's just like, we don't really know what would happen, but it's just like, if Anno wouldn't have had like the supportive parents that he had, he would have been in a very different place in order to not be able to make this. Where it's just like, you can't cure depression, you just have to facilitate your needs for it.
Right. I believe, like, correct me if I'm wrong, Yoko, because since among the four of us, you are the definitive experts on Anno. You're bros. What ultimately helped Anno in his life was not just his friend Shinji Higuchi, but also his wife also played a big part in his healing process, right?
Yes. It's also said in the documentary that she was kind of a huge driving force from getting him out of that dark place. And it is very interesting to see that Anno, being in his state of mind, he was always surrounded by people who are willing to stick their neck out for him and to support him and help him in any capacity. Like, even like Miyazaki offered him the lead role in The Wind Rises, like during the whole healing process. So, like, and of course his good friend Higuchi has always been there, and Higuchi was the one who handed Anno basically Shin Godzilla, because like, and then Anno was like,
buddy,
no.
I know you feel sad, right? Yeah, you want to direct a Godzilla movie? How about that?
And he's like, no,
how about we do it? How about we both do it, right?
We both do it.
I mean,
that's gonna be fun.
Like, hey, I really believe in this guy. I'm a really good friend. Like, yeah, that's the one thing. Like, it is the puppy, but it's like, knowing people who have been severely depressed, it's just like, you know what they can do. You believe in them. And then they just don't even understand that when you're just like, hey, you can do really good things. It's like, no, you're just saying that. It's like, no, I love you and I want you to do these things. It's just like, it's it is a frustrating position to be in, but it's just like, I believe that you can make the most frustrating anime that has ever happened, and I believe that you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the main difference, I think, between Gendo and Shinji, and you can very much clearly see it in this last movie, where Gendo had nobody, but Shinji had his friends and people that love him and support him to bring him out of that dark place, so he doesn't end up being the villain. And that's kind of like Anno's life, where Anno had people in his life to drag him out of it, but his father seemed to be more so the Gendo type, where he hated the world. Yeah. If you watch it again, that documentary, it's such a great documentary and it's so eye-opening. But Anno says that his father lost his leg in an accident, and after that accident, he resented the world because he felt as if he did nothing to deserve that accident from happening. So he resented the world because it happened, and that isn't that not Gendo's whole perspective is like, I lost Yui, so I'm gonna like screw everyone over, and I'm gonna see Yui again in this like in the orange Fanta soda. So,
but it almost felt like he hated Yui. Like, he hated this woman for making him feel like lesser of a like that's kind of what I felt when I was watching it. Like, I felt like he hated her, and that was like him embracing her, and like he's just like, I hated you for making me feel that I wasn't alone. Like, I
think maybe he hated himself too. Like, he was like, I hate myself for even caring, and the fact that I cared like brought me into this pit.
Yeah, I guess he felt like
you did this to me. You did this to me.
Or maybe he feels like he now has like this like parasitic relationship where it's like, I need Yui to exist now. I can't live without Yui, and ever since we met, I've become that way, and so I can't go on.
I would say that's more the case, because essentially, if you believed anything else, Shinji should have been like, oh, this is the culmination of the relationship between me and Yui. I should do nothing more but love and support Shinji. But essentially, it just turns into like, you're not Yui. It's like, well, I'm your son. It's just like that. I think that was the weirdest thing. That my weirdest takeaway from like 4.0 was just like, he should love Shinji, like, because essentially that's the only part of Yui that he has left. But it's like, no, I'm gonna end the world. I'm gonna do all of this stuff to bring this world. It's just like, literally, there's this being that is like the culmination of you and the person you love, like in front of you. It's like, fuck him. I think robot in the world.
But
and
I don't think he ever noticed that until the end, right?
Yeah, he
at the very end he notices.
Right. And I think until then,
in the beginning, I was just like, this is your son. Like, this is the culmination of you and the woman that you love. And it's just like, okay, I want her. It's just like 50% of her is right there in front of
you. I believe that in the movie when he was so by the end of the movie, Shinji and Gendo, they confront each other, and that's another thing I really love about 4.0 is that we get the that final confrontation between son and father that I don't
finally
we never really got at all in not even in End of Evangelion because Gendo, he ended up fucking himself over, so he never got that chance to make amends with Shinji. So for this one, yes, I love that the confrontation. It makes sense that Gendo would be essentially the final boss of this movie for Shinji to encounter, and of course, like, as awesome it would be to just have a one big giant slugfest, one big smackdown between Shinji and his dad. Of course, it's never that simple when it comes to Evangelion. So it goes from having a big flashy battle, which it took a weird turn where everything just literally turned into an episode of Ultraman, where you can see the sets, the models, the backdrops.
I was like, they literally broke the fourth wall.
Yes,
they literally broke it. Like,
it's all
and even this. It's like it's like ultra smooth and everything, and it's
the animation's really smooth. Like it stops being animated, and it stops being animated, and it becomes motion capture, I think.
Yeah, and I was like, the whole time, like, they had that shot in the trailer of Unit 13 fighting Unit 1, and I was like, why is that shot so smooth. And finally, I was like, oh, it's
tokusatsu.
Okay, it's tokusatsu. Okay, and then like the small little detail of like when Gendo like throws Unit 1 into the set of the sky and like it kind of like buckles.
Yeah.
You can see the apple boxes with the Toho logo on it.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, oh, you. I see you.
You
Fucking,
clever
you.
bastard.
You're so clever.
You son of a bitch.
And then I don't know if you guys know this, but the studio where they're fighting, and then at the end where he's talking to Rei, that's Toho Studios. That's Studio 7 in Toho Studios.
That's
because
awesome.
that's where I was That's where I was working.
I stood there where Rei was.
And I was like, that's where I was.
I handled that camera.
Is there another word for like meta as fuck? Because like really, like that is.
I think that's the perfect phrase for it. Meta as fuck.
Like,
metafictional.
Yeah.
I
swear once it started looking like Ultraman, I'm like, wait, and then the whole time I'm like, oh, and I'm like, oh, and then he like broke the set and he broke through that wall, and I'm like,
yeah,
you motherfucker.
and then they're fighting in various sets, so you just see like two Avas fighting in a classroom.
In Misato's apartment. I was like, what?
Yes. It's like everything, because they're fighting in like another dimension, a dream dimension that's all based off of memory, so that's why the entire background keeps changing every shot. But to go back to the whole set thing, I love that bit because I know, like, Anno has always been an Ultraman fan. He grew up on Ultraman. He made an Ultraman fan film where he played Ultraman. Now he's directing Shin Ultraman. If you think about it, Evangelion is essentially his take on Ultraman. It's
Ultraman fan fiction is what it is.
Yes.
Let's call it what it is.
Yes, it is. It's Ultraman fan fiction, and it finally comes full circle with that battle.
That was like a beautiful like tribute. Like I was really not expecting that to be an Eva.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, you really went there.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And none of the anime fans are gonna get it. I love that.
And I almost wanted to like turn, like I was in the theater, I was watching it for the first time, and I wanted to turn like, y'all don't get this, do you?
I know this shit.
I know
you're a bunch of fake fans because you're all a bunch of fucking weebs.
Watch Ultraman, you fucks.
I remember we were watching with Andres, and once they broke, I'm like, you motherfucker.
You madman.
And I had this like giant smile waiting for Nick and Lora for the pieces to connect.
Yeah, I was like, oh, you're like,
genius.
This is the rap party. I'm like, oh, this is great. Like, this is...
And then
I don't know why people keep asking why there's going to be more Eva. I'm like, no, this is the best ending that you could ever get. Like,
that's facts.
So good.
So, like I said, like it starts off with a big epic fight between the two Evas, between Gendo and Shinji. But then, of course, they stop fighting. They realize this fighting will lead to nowhere. So they just decide to have a talk. Just sit down and talk to each other. Just talk things out. As a fan of giant robot action, part of me would have liked them just to have to go like if this was like Gurren Lagann, they'd just be like punching the fuck out of each other. They'd toss their spears aside, do the whole epic counter punch shot.
Right.
They'll just punch each other at the same time. But I am very, very satisfied with this more, I guess you could say, more mature direction, a more again subversive direction.
I guess
it's
cerebral.
The Robo-Jocks end.
Yeah. There's no Robot Jocks ending here.
No, that's how Robot. Remember, they shake hands and they talk it out.
No, they don't. They just punch each other. They go to space. They land in space.
He grabs his hand. He shakes his hand, and he's like, "We're gonna talk this out."
Well, they don't actually show the talking. They just do the whole thumbs up, fist bump deal.
I mean, it's Robo-Jocks.
Well,
what's Robo-Jocks?
What do you mean, what's
I'm sure I've watched it with you like 3 times. So
you see, Robo-Jocks is Evangelion fanfiction. I love how Lora just laughed.
I'm pretty sure I've watched it with her like twice.
But to talk about the conversation, I do like that we get a full backstory. I think we've never had Gendo's backstory told in this much detail.
Yeah.
Going all the way back to his childhood, we see him essentially living a life akin to Shinji, living in isolation, felt that he never needed any sort of meaningful human connection. He was content with living in isolation. That was until college. He met Yui and Mari, as we later learned that Mari is much older than any of us would have thought. All three of them, the Yui, Mari, Gendo, and the older guy, the sensei, whose name I'm always forgetting.
Fuyutsuki.
Fuyutsuki, yeah. They were all knew each other, all buddies in college. So we see how the kind of like upbringing that Gendo had, his sort of like him potentially sort of finding a new lease on life, meeting Yui, and then his fall from grace upon her death. And his eventual like epitome. I liked how Gendo was trying to sort of in a way poison Shinji's mind, saying like, life sucks, everything sucks. Right. You should be as miserable as I am because look at you have nothing like I did. And then Shinji just turns the tables and started looking into his memories, and then that's when we get a further in understanding that these two people were the same. And I do like the idea that. Like, yes, it does make sense that as you mentioned, Laura, Shinji is the culmination of Gendo and Yui's relationship. For Gendo, he did not think about that because he thought that while Shinji, like his life would have been happy with Shinji, at that moment he mentioned in that sequence that he felt he was not deserving of happiness, and that's why he pushed Shinji away. So that he could be happy without him. He felt like he was undeserving of being a father.
Yeah.
And he also probably thought that he was incapable of being a father as well towards Shinji. So he thought he was doing this he was punishing himself with what he thought was for Shinji's own good, even though that led Shinji down his whole depressive spiral. Yeah. Emotional, like downward spiral. So he eventually came to realize the error of his ways by that significant action there.
That was a really interesting flashback sequence.
If Shinji would have been the reason why his mother, if it was one of those situations where because of your birth you took away the woman that I loved, and it's like I can feel like that's why he would resent him, but she was alive for a little while,
right? Oh yeah. Shinji was at least a couple years old by the time,
4 or 5, I'm assuming. Something like that.
Yeah. So I think the reason why he rejected Shinji was because he felt that he was undeserving of being a happy father.
And there was a scene also where it cuts to Asuka's flashback, and then not a baby, sorry, but a child Asuka is watching a child Shinji being taken care of by Yui and Gendo, and Gendo in that scene almost acts like he doesn't know what to do with Shinji.
Yeah. So he's holding him like this,
and then Shinji's throwing a tantrum, but then Yui hugs Shinji, and Gendo's kind of I don't know what to do. So it does seem as if just even from the beginning he didn't really care about anyone besides Yui. So it does make sense that he did push Shinji away, because it would have been weird if he actually loved Shinji from the start, but he clearly was
uncomfortable.
Yeah, he was uncomfortable with the idea of him, even existing, I think. Yeah,
and I wonder if that's not just his dad, Gendo's own social awkwardness as a person, but I wonder if that's also a sort of a little commentary on the roles that fathers play in Japanese families, because fathers, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like Japanese fathers are not as emotionally supportive as mothers tend to be, especially
okay.
I was just going to say, especially in common Japanese households, the fathers are usually almost always away at work, barely spending any time with their children. So for a lot of children, they end up growing up without that real father, without that fatherly presence in their lives all that much.
I was just kind of reminded of we'd recently watched is it Eraserhead? And it's that was David Lynch's interpretation of just his inability to understand what it was to be a father.
Yeah.
And it was just a very interesting thing where it's just like, maybe that's kind of how he felt, where it's just like, I don't know how to care for this thing. Like, I've been taught to, like, not to do any of these caring things, and you thrust this thing upon me where I'm supposed to love this child. I was kind of vaguely reminded of Eraserhead, where it's just like, that was kind of like David Lynch's weird interpretation of just like, I don't know what to do with it. Like,
is Eraserhead Evangelion fanfiction?
Uh-oh.
Or is Evangelion Eraserhead fanfiction?
Like, the beginning of it, it's just like him trying to take care of this thing that he doesn't, and it doesn't even look like a child. It just looks like this, like, it was his perception of his daughter, where it's just like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what this thing is. I'm supposed to do all these things that I'm not taught to do. And so it's like, that's kind of what it reminded me of. Like, that was a weird David Lynch Eva link that I had made when I was watching it. It was like a...
Well, as someone who... No, I was going to say, as someone who always relates to Shinji due to, like, similar...
circumstances. You weren't told to get into the robot.
Circumstances and like depression issues. It just makes like hope that I would not be that same way towards a son or daughter.
I guess that would implicate why Shinji maybe acted the way that he did, where it's just like he doesn't want to be his father, but he doesn't understand how to not be his father.
Yeah,
right.
I would not want to do the same way
right.
towards son or daughter.
Right. The parents ultimately pass on, their influence onto the child, and so like the cycle repeats again.
Yeah.
But then, if you didn't want to not do that cycle, you would not, like, you wouldn't know how to not do it, because essentially you were shown how that was way. Like, that would be like, you're like, I watched my dad do this, so I have to do this. Where it's just like, that's wrong, but you don't know how to not to do the thing that you were shown how to do.
Possibly, yeah.
Do that.
I don't know. That's a weird level that we're not getting on to.
But also, I think there's something to be said. Also, the fact that Anno himself doesn't have children, and
that's
I
what
think
I was going to ask because I couldn't remember.
Okay.
Yeah,
he doesn't have children, and I feel like he has the same mentality of like, I don't know if I can. Well, I can't speak for the man, obviously, but like my perception of it was, it always felt like he can't bring forth a child into this world because he feels like he doesn't want to pass on, I guess, his experiences or his trauma onto another child. So there is a little bit of like the Gendo in him in that aspect of it, where I don't think he would know what to do with children.
Like, Gendo is his interpretation of himself in that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess, like, speaking of characters...
We're talking about a fucking anime. That's the weird thing about Eva. It's like, I swear, I feel like you could just sit there and think about, like, so many implications of this show. And it's just like, oh yeah, it's about robots and...
giant monsters.
Yeah, like, I feel like that's why this has lasted as long as it has. It's like,
and
absolutely.
Giant robots, monsters, and occasional uncomfortable fan service.
You gotta get it done. It's fine. But yeah,
you know what's weird?
We gotta sell those, like, we gotta sell those female
those
character figurines and body pillows somehow.
And the lobsters. And
you know what's so weird? Like,
Mm-hmm.
thank you for bringing up the fan service, because
yeah,
I've been told that from multiple people, and maybe it's because I am of Japanese descent that I've been so like desensitized by all of it. But like, I didn't even notice it until people told me about it, which is very weird. And now I can't like unsee it.
yeah, every single like crotch shot, ass shot, leg shot, foot shot.
There's so many ass shots in 4. Like that's the weirdest thing.
There's a portion.
I've never seen an anime version of somebody breastfeeding, and I'm just like, that's different.
That's different, yeah.
That's different.
Here's the thing, like, one that I thought was very inappropriate at the time was, like, Toji's sister, who is, like, older in this
Oh, yes.
And, like, she's trying to shoot Shinji because she doesn't want him to go into the Ava. And so she ends up, like kneeling down. And as she's kneeling down, her ass is, like, in camera as she's having this, like, mental breakdown. It's like, is this a necessary shot for her? Meanwhile, like, Anno's in the back, he's like, Yes, this is very important.
Absolutely.
An ass man, because there's so much ass in like.
Oh yeah, like the part where they're like in zero gravity. You have Mari and Asuka. Asuka literally turns around so that you could see her ass in full shot as she pushes herself forward.
Oh, there's even
we've got to have new white suits that better accentuate the ass.
And then they're just like completely butt ass naked before that.
What's the character with like the really big pink lips?
Oh yeah, her. She's like a new character introduced.
Midori.
Yeah. She was introduced.
There's shots of her just like, I'm at my station, but look at my ass. There's like 3 other shots where it's just like, it's really hard being me, and then she just leans over, and then it pans behind her, and you just see like 2 very distinct ass cheeks, just like chilling out on the scene. It's like,
there's a really interesting one of her as well that maybe this is the filmmaker in me that I didn't see it as fan service. I just thought of it as like a really cool shot that I've never seen before. Mm-hmm. But Midori stands up, and then the camera is static, but then like she walks towards the camera, but the camera kind of goes through her legs. Mm-hmm. And somebody pointed out like, oh, like look at that fan service. And I was like, oh, I just saw that as like a really cool shot, because I've never seen like a camera go through someone's legs. I was like, oh, that's okay, that's really fucking neat. But like maybe it's the fact that I am like of Japanese descent that like I didn't
deep.
Yeah, I'm in too deep at this point, and I was watching it like, oh, this is normal. Like this is like any other anime.
How many Asuka and Rei figures do you own, Yoko?
0, thankfully.
I'm not going to answer that question.
That's a private matter, Andres. But like, I was watching
how many
like
Jurassic Park eggs do you have on?
4. Like I was watching like One Punch Man recently, and just like rewatching it, and then like that to me felt more. And this is off topic, but like this is about fan service, but like that seemed more overt to me than the butt shots in Eva, because like in One Punch Man, like they all have like huge boobs. And they're wearing like
unless you're talking about what's her name, Terrible Tornado.
Oh yes,
she's the one with the ass shots, though.
Yeah, she's the one with the ass shots. Yeah,
and,
so it's like
potentially no pants.
And potentially, yeah, because like her dress is just kind of like that in like slivers. But I find that to be more like fan servicey, because like I know it's like there is like that like gaze thing in 3.0 plus 1.0, but it feels more. I don't know. Maybe this is me, but like it never felt like sexual. It just kind of is like it's there.
It's there.
But it never feels like
pervy,
appealing. Like, but fan service to me is like it's meant to be like pervy or like stimulating or kind of I guess provoking the sexual parts of your mind, and that's kind of like the fan service of it. But I'm watching Shin Eva, and there wasn't really a moment in time, like even in the shots that you mentioned where Mari and Asuka are fully naked, and they're like holding the suit like this. I was just like, oh, naked. Like I never felt like, oh, like that's like a like ooh, like look at that like titillating, sexy shot. Like it never felt that way to me per se.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting to see like the Western reaction where everyone was like holy shit, like look at the fan service. But then if you go to Japan, I'm sure that's like the least controversial thing.
Right, definitely.
So I was so weird to see like that reaction of like no one in Japan that I've talked to about this movie has ever brought up the fan service, but then everyone here who's seen it instantly brings it up. I'm like, oh, that's very interesting.
I would say that the fan service was like, it was weird peaks where it's just like the whole time you didn't have any of it, and it's like, oh, there's an ass. There's like it was almost the fact that there was peaks of it that made it seem weird, as opposed to like I've not seen something that's very strictly like fan servicey, but like I felt like, oh, there was a butt there. Like where if you see like a live action movie where it's just like, oh yeah, like there's a butt there. Oh yeah, like she's got her tits out. Like it felt like a normal movie. Like it didn't feel like strictly like fan servicey the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And the butts were also like out of focus too for the most part, because like they were like kind of in the forefront. So it always felt as if it was more gazy but not sexual.
I would say it's more. I would say it's more voyeuristic.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
It is
voyeuristic.
You're a fly on the wall, being able to take a peek at someone in their private in their what they think they're in their own privacy.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
And you just happen to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Or even if like the scene where like she's like bent over and she's in her station, where it's like I feel like any other scene would be like her face or like a different perspective, but it's just like, oh no, it's like it's her butt. Like
it's very possible that this is like maybe this was meant to be fan service, but this is just a more subtle means of fan service as opposed to like the One Punch Man.
Which we should embrace, other than just like, hey, there's Miss Tits a lot over there.
Miss Tits a lot.
If anyone's missed tits a lot, I would probably say it was arguably Mari, because even like the first, was it 2.0?
She's like, I'm the chick with the big tits, and I'm like,
she
even says it,
yeah, she has brought attention to her own chest.
I love that part. I'm like, I'm that girl with the big tits. She's like, oh, yeah, obviously he doesn't know what her name is.
Oh, right.
Like, I love that.
Big tits.
I do.
Sir Mix-a-Lot.
No. What's the name of the lady from GoldenEye, the Phoenix from X-Men 3?
The actress.
Sophie Turner.
No, but it's like Fox.
Dark Phoenix, right? Wait,
not Sophie Turner, the original lady.
Famke Jensen?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, who was she in GoldenEye?
She was Xenia Onatopp.
Yes. That's what I think of.
I must be dreaming.
Yes. It is James Bond casual fan service.
Right. Oh, maybe that's it. It's like this movie has not an anime level fan service. It's like a 007 level fan service.
And I think maybe the reason why people are reacting this way is because these are either underage characters or characters that they're technically not underage anymore, but they are designed to be underage, and that is a whole other can of worms that just
that's like more of that's like an anime conversation as opposed to like an Ava specific conversation, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, that's definitely like part
them making them clones, or it's just like, oh, they're not people, they're clones of somebody who might have been of age.
Oh god, yeah. That's a whole deal with when it comes to Asuka and Rei.
Asuka,
one last thing I will mention with Asuka, it's like the fact that she doesn't wear she wears practically nothing when she's hanging out at the house. She's just got like a
I love that that's a joke. She's like, oh yeah, she's naked again.
I do find it interesting that they do kind of subvert the whole anime trope where a guy gets all flustered when he sees a naked girl with Shinji having zero reaction except like to the choker that she wears.
Yeah, that was interesting. I like that bit, and
neither does another guy who was just like, "Oh yeah, like she's naked."
Oh, Kensuke. Like, "Oh yeah, here's a towel."
Or maybe it's like, "Hey, well, it is a 14-year-old body." It's like, no, please no.
Yeah, like,
I think the whole thing that I had a hard time, like not even a hard time, like with the show, but like thinking of is like I can't imagine the nightmare of being 14, but being not 14. Like I just can't imagine the nightmare that she went through. Like Like
she's 14 forever.
Like I am an adult. Like I have needs. I have certain things that I need to go through. But I'm 14. That was the whole time watching 4. I'm just like, that has to be horrible. Like that has to be a nightmare existence. And like at least she found somebody who kind of accepted it.
Right, like Kensuke. Yeah.
It's just like I felt like he at least acknowledged like, oh yeah, like. I know what's going on. I know why you're like this. I'll accept you for what you are. But it's like the nightmare of being right at 14.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I can't even imagine like what she had to go through. And like, I feel like that's why 4 made a lot of sense of like why she was so angry. It's like, I'd be fucking pissed if I'm
I gotta deal with teenage hormones for the rest of my life. I got fucking acne every single day. I got body odor.
and like, not even if she was like dealing with all that shit, it's just like, I'm 20. Like, can't you accept, there's the character in Invincibles where like she can't morph because she gets younger and younger.
Mhm.
It's like that is a nightmare just to be like, hey, I'm an adult, but you look at me and you see this. It's like, no, like
Yeah.
I have experienced so much fucking shit and you don't understand, but you just see me as this 14-year-old girl. It's like I've been in robots. Like
multiple robots.
like you don't understand. It's just like, oh yeah, you're just this cute little girl. It's just like, no. Like that's why, yeah. That's the whole time watching 4, I'm just like, I can't imagine that nightmare that those people have to go through.
Yeah. Speaking of Asuka, there is like a major revelation with her that I don't think was quite properly explained enough for my taste, nor was it a concept I was really fully behind, where it was revealed that, like Rei, Asuka is one of many, many clones, and that is the reason for why she feels so alone. At one point, she refers to the humans as Lilin, so like she doesn't see herself as a human like the rest of the people at the settlement. So it does sort of explain her lone wolf persona that she's had since 2.0. It does add some context to why she feels so ostracized, or she has self-ostracized herself from the rest of the people she knows. But I don't know, I just kind of found her backstory in the TV show to be significantly more interesting, where she had a daughter, a mother who went crazy, tried to kill, ended up killing herself, and just that really mentally scarred her and caused her to want to have this sort of like what do you call? I'm not sure if TV Asuka would have either a superiority complex or inferiority complex, where she wants to prove herself to her now non-existent dead mother. So, I guess you could say the TV show did have much more time to establish that, whereas with the Rebuild series, they didn't give Asuka any time really to develop in terms of a backstory. They did show her a lot in 2.0, which I really enjoyed. This more quieter, less shouty, whiny, complainy version of her. But in terms of the backstory, I thought it was like really weird and bizarre, like left turn. Plus, it just felt like derivative because you already have Rei, so why have another character who is a genetic clone? So, what do you guys think of this like major change for Asuka?
Well, she had a different age thing of Rei, right? Because she was like, "Oh, how old is Rei?" And then she's like, "Oh no, I'm not asking for any reason, but why is the Asuka clone a better clone than the Rei clone because she had lasted longer?"
That's a good question, because like Rei always had like a stunted personality, like very super socially awkward. But Asuka, you can never tell that she is in any way like born yesterday.
But like literally, like that Rei clone died in front of Shinji. Like, why is it that Asuka clone is older yet lived longer?
I guess she was made differently than Clone Rei.
I'm guessing the Rei clones, much like Unit 0, is a prototype, because Unit 0 was Unit 0 was a test type, and then Unit 1 was a prototype. So I feel like the Rei clones were almost like a test, and the Shikinami series was a more perfected line. And I put this in my spoiler analysis video for this movie, but it does add some interesting context as to why Asuka hates Rei so much. Because of the fact that like maybe she knows that she's a clone, so she has all. And it's interesting if this is the case, and this is how I interpret her new backstory, is that because she knows she's a clone, she feels as if she needs to be the best clone to justify her existence. And that's why she is always having the superiority, or like you were saying, rather inferiority complex. And it could explain why she hates Rei so much, where she is just almost like another puppet clone, and she doesn't have to try, but Asuka has to always try to self-identify from the other clone series in her lineup,
because she cares, whereas Rei, she doesn't care.
Because she's like she always says like, I'm replaceable.
If I die, that's no biggie.
Exactly. So I think Asuka is constantly upset at that, and then at some point, like, she calls her a doll. So I think it's very much implied that Asuka might even know that Rei is a clone. She might even know that, and she herself knows she's a clone because she says like, "That's my original."
Yeah. Well, and then she knows that Rei is a clone because she's just like, "Oh, how long has it been?"
Oh, yeah. She asked like,
"Oh, yeah."
was she like doing okay? And Shinji was like, "Yeah, like she was fine."
And then she looks at her watch like, "Oh yeah, like nothing, no reason."
Right.
Yeah. I guess that's a different thing because essentially, like, Rei is trying to identify herself as something different than what she was, and then Asuka is like hardcore, like, we are the same. But it seems weird that they would pour resources into the Asuka clone and not the Rei clone because that's you think he would want more, like a better version of Yui. As opposed to, I maybe it's more a thing like where Asuka was a more recent person and an easier thing to clone.
But I think also too, maybe the backstory from NGE is also in the Rebuild movies, where perhaps in Unit 2, the soul of Asuka's mom is still there, and that's why they need a bunch of Asuka clones.
Actually, I think they implied that the soul of the original Asuka is in Eva 2, because why would the pseudo ghost of Asuka suddenly show up before Asuka our Asuka herself?
Right.
At least I was about to ask you guys, where do you think that real original Asuka came from? Because she just kind of again pops up out of nowhere once her plan to go Super Saiyan mode fails.
I guess.
Which is awesome, by the way.
Yeah,
that sequence is fucking wild.
Although it does really add to. I guess it's their attempt to kind of replicate that Asuka's last final stand from the end of Eva movie, where she ends up like failing anyways. But she has that one last moment of glory. But I don't know. It's like as flashy as it was, it just ultimately kind of ends with nothing.
Yeah, it's a very like, oh shit. And then I think just real quick also that Anno has an obsession with killing Asuka and Kaoru in like the most like absurdly like brutal ways.
Yeah.
Like he just loves that kind of stuff.
Like just seeing her head pop off her body, you're like, fuck, man.
But I think this is my, I guess, like question is, I think the original Asuka clone might have been, I think Asuka Shikinami in 2.0 is Asuka and not a clone. And later in 2.0, after Unit 3 was contaminated and then like torn apart by Unit 1, there's a shot of Asuka in like this weird almost like life support system that's like in this like containment field.
It's like, you didn't help me and then you wanted to help me, which makes me feel like she was in limbo.
Right. It's possible. At the very least, Asuka from 4.0 remembers everything that happened to Asuka in 2.0.
Yes. So it's weird. And then Gendo mentions that the Shikinami series was made for this moment. So it is interesting to figure out what's going on. So there has to be something within Unit 2 that forces Gendo to make the Asuka clones. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think it's because they lost the original Asuka in 2.0, and then that's why like that's the original.
Yeah.
And then all the other Shikinami series clones were created after the fact
during the 14-year period.
During the 14-year period, but then also kind of like with Rei, the Rei clones in NGE and the rebuilds sometimes retain the same
memories.
Brief moments of like exactly. So
like she vaguely remembers that she. Oh yeah, because end of Evangelion or maybe near end of Evangelion, Rei. Like I guess fans call her Rei 3. Rei 3 vaguely remembers her dying.
Yeah, and she was like, tears. Like, am I crying? I felt something like this before. So it is clear that she can remember things from the other clone. So I'm assuming that Asuka, the clone Asuka that's in 3.0 and 4.0, was caught up to speed basically, with all of the other memories that she had, and that's why she wanted to punch Shinji in 3.0 like through the glass.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
Another weird fan theory I've heard of is that potentially when we see the ghost of Asuka talking to our Asuka in 4.0, people have theorized that maybe that is Asuka from a previous incarnation. Like maybe that is NGE, that is TV series Asuka.
Oh,
because they kind of sort of pseudo confirm that this is a repeating timeline, and that like each version that we've seen of the story, whether it's the TV series or the manga or Rebuild, the universe sort of pseudo it reboots, and we're going through this cycle again and again until 4.0 finally breaks the cycle.
Yeah.
Right. I think it should be noted also that this Asuka is Asuka Shikinami as opposed to Langley Soryu.
Yeah.
So that's an important thing. So that's interesting that could be Langley Soryu talking to Shikinami.
Yeah.
That's very interesting, actually.
It's also very funny that interesting that all three girls have names that rhyme, and I don't know if they have the same kanji in their names: Shikinami, Ayanami, Morinami. I don't know if Nami is the same kanji among all three of them. I would have to look into that afterwards.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I kind of held on to for Eva was just the weird connection between I'm in this robot that is my mom, and then it's just the different levels of connection between Shinji's mom loved him, and so that's what Shinji does better, and then it's Asuka's mom was very indifferent and had issues, and that's why Asuka's had to prove herself to be
not to mention not to mention that Ava 1 often would, and on rare occasions, act on its own. That's like the mother inside, the mother's soul inside the robot acting like Mama Bear right there.
Yeah, so it's essentially that's why Shinji has done so good, because it's out of everything, Rei is just an empty soul, and then she is in a robot that is another empty soul. But it's that is why Shinji is the chosen person, where it's just his mother grown to love him and understand everything that she I'm assuming between all the interpretation, it's Shinji's mom loved him and gave everything to be him, and that maybe that's why she became the unit one that would protect him, where it's just she saw everything that was going on, where it's just I think for me that's the thing that I think about with Eva, where it's just this is a weird thing where it's just it's their mother in this robot, and it's it's different interpretations of different things, where it's just Shinji, his mother loved him, and then Asuka was just your dad's gone, I'm out, and then it's and then that was in 4. I think there's a part where Asuka's trying to figure out her relationship with her dad, which is the only time I think Eva has ever talked about Asuka's dad. When she's talking to the weird bear.
Oh no, that's Kensuke.
But she's talking to Kensuke oh yeah, you're my dad, and it's a weird. It's her trying to interpret her relationship between her mom and her dad.
Did she say her?
I don't remember.
I don't remember that part.
There's some weird thing where she's trying to figure out because I remember thinking oh my god, this is the only time where she's ever tried to figure out her relationship with her dad.
I don't remember that part.
I think she asks in the Amazon thing. I think she asks if he is her dad, and he says no, and then he takes his head off, and it's him. But I'm not the hardcore Eva fan, so I'm probably wrong. And then
I don't remember.
Your thoughts on New Asuka's backstory?
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely interesting, because I always think of the original anime when they go through the different versions, when it's I don't know how to explain it, when it's Shinji laying down and it's the different women in his life going up and down, and I always remember seeing the eye patch Asuka in the original anime.
Oh yeah.
So when you see this version of the eye patch Asuka, and I saw the different naming, I always thought something was off. And then to find out she is a clone and what you guys are talking about makes a lot of sense. Like, about the clone difference there. I don't know how to explain it.
No worries. I guess I'm moving on to Rey, or I guess like Clone Rey. I really like what they did with her because she didn't do like a whole lot. She was mainly there as like a distraction for Shinji in 3.0, but in 4.0 they really tried to develop her as her own individual to the point where nobody even calls her Rey. Mm-hmm. They would just call her Miss Lookalike in the English dub. Right. And I really like that she just learns what it means to be human. It's like she knows nothing about what being a human means. It got a bit on Laura's Lora's nerves, where it's like, what's hello, what's goodbye, what's a smile.
Like, I know how to talk. I will say she did really annoy me, but like her end scene was like, that was the strongest thing in that entire thing. Where I'm just like, I wanted to hold him again. I'm like, oh my god, like.
I thought she meant of it every time she would ask that. I thought she meant it as more of a literal term. She understood, like, I know goodbye, but like, what's the exact definition? Like,
but her dying was like, that was the hardest part of that entire movie. Was her dying.
Yeah, in Japanese, like, she is not asking the literal meaning. It's more of like, it's hard to express it. It's like why. She's not asking why, but the intent is like, why do you say
what?
Oh, yeah. Like, what do you get from this? Like, why
basically, yes, yeah.
Oh, what do you get from saying goodbye right now?
Like, that one scene, like, that was the hardest scene of like the entire movie. It was like her being like, oh, I wanted to hold this kid again. I wanted to do this again.
And there's a very like subtle writing thing too, where just before Rey explodes into LCL, she says goodbye, and then in a previous scene with Hikari, she asks what goodbye means, and then Hikari says it's a spell that we say to each other when we want to see each other again. Mm-hmm. So it's like she's saying to Shinji that like we'll see each other again. So like it was very poignant, and then like she does see him again in Unit 1, but it's the original clone. But
I do like that she actually learns what it means to be human, and she kind of almost comes out at the end feeling very satisfied. Like, despite my short existence, I feel like I've lived a very blessed life.
I was out in the rice field. I know what it is.
I can harvest crops.
I can read. I can read stories to children.
It is crazy how they developed her entire character in like 45 minutes. That's insane to me.
Yeah,
it's almost it's almost like a short film in and of itself.
Yeah. Like how? Like, how did you do that? Like, writing wise, like that's insane to me that you can make a character who basically was like a mute, like a doll in the third movie. Yeah, basically to make her have feelings and give her her own conclusion, and then like Asuka tells her that like all her emotions are programmed by nerve and everything, but she overcame the programming by experiencing life, and like all that stuff was only done in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Like it's nuts.
Her arc is the strongest arc in that entire movie. Like I'm like just feeling everything that like I felt like I'm like I can relate to everything that and then the end part I'm like, oh my god, like and then the movie left.
Yes. Yeah. And like I just love the moment where like she realized she's dying, and upon that realization she's crying, and she's like, why am I crying? Because now she found a reason to live.
She's like, I wanted to hold him one more time. I'm like, oh my god.
It's crazy that she has like the hole in her hand.
Oh yeah, because like that, what's it called, stigmata?
Yeah,
like,
that was very
Jesus
interesting.
Nail.
Yeah, and I was like, I see what you're doing there.
You still like a little bit of that like Christian iconography there.
Iconography, I see you.
Despite you being a fucking heathen, a non-believer. Of culturally appropriating Christian culture.
Christian beliefs.
You agnostic fuck.
I think a lot of it is just like you just show that like life goes on, and then like she just doesn't get to experience it. Where it's just like, I kind of wanted to see that. Like the whole time I saw like that cat that was really fat, and I'm like, that cat's pregnant.
Yeah.
That cat's gonna have kittens, and somehow that's gonna play into this. And I'm just like, oh, she didn't. Like, it's just like she didn't get to see all the things.
Yeah.
It's like, well, fuck it.
Oh, but there is one shot where the cat already has, and then like they walk past the screen, and I'm like, oh,
to show like the passage of time.
Yeah.
But it was just like, yeah, shit happens. We don't. Time doesn't care that you didn't get to see these things.
Right. So you just got to make the most of what little time you have left in this world.
Yeah.
Explode into Fanta, and then
eventually we all explode into Fanta.
All of us. But yeah, like that whole sequence
He's
is
gonna
nuts.
explode into Fanta.
Please.
It's like, bury me in my Fanta.
In Fanta.
I want a Fanta.
Imagine, like, you literally like dissolve his body into goo, put the goo in the coffin. So if the day ever comes where archaeologists are digging up people's coffins, they're like, why the fuck is there all this Fanta orange soda?
What is this?
I'll take that over your other wish. What's your other wish?
I want her to be stuffed.
Yeah, I'm not.
Oh my god!
I remember that was one of the first conversations we had.
That would be funny.
Nick wants to be stuffed, and I'm like,
You just be.
oh yeah! I'm like, no.
You could put in the Buddy Christ pose, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've always wanted to be like in a museum. It's just like, put me in a museum, like, just like in a pose, like, hey.
Say that, but then there's people that go to those bodies museums, like, is that a gunshot wound in that?
I don't care.
I care. I'm still alive.
Just put me in a JoJo pose.
Oh, that's my husband. He's the one in the suck it pose at the bottom.
Like,
Yeah.
That's the love of my life, right there. Yeah.
Immortalized with his classic phrase, suck on this.
Suck on
this world.
Everybody else called it suck it, man.
Suck it, man.
Suck it, man.
Suck it, man.
I'm a suck it, man.
Suck it, man. But Eva.
Yes. So we do see like classic Rey by the end of the series.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I do want to ask you guys what was supposed to go on in there, where we see Rey, long hair, she remembers everything from 1.0 and 2.0. So I'm wondering, is it supposed to imply that her legit soul was trapped in 1.0 like Shinji's mom?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think I think that's the idea.
I interpret that as Yui. That was Yui.
Because sorry, they do, or Mari, just before Shinji enters Unit 1, Mari says to Shinji, like, Asuka's soul might be in Unit 13.
Right. And then he turns her into a physical, it gave her a physical body again, and shot her out back to Earth.
Yeah, so I'm assuming it's the same thing for Rey also, because the same thing that Unit 13 did is kind of the same thing that Unit 1 did for Rey, where like they kind of like went berserk and then merged. So I think that is the soul of original rebuild Rey, basically. And that's why like her hair is so long.
Yeah, because it's grown since the 14 years.
Yeah. I was like, that's a neat touch. Yeah. That's a very neat touch.
I did thought it was I was a little confused at first, because like in 3.0 there's like, where's Rey? I pulled her out, and it's like, Rey, there is no Rey. We checked the cockpit. There's no Rey there, even though there is like the Walkman to imply that she was physically there, but it was like completely dropped for the rest of the movie. And then for 4.0, they say like, oh, this is the world of your memories, so things are going to be all fucked up from here on out. So I wasn't sure if that Rey was just a memory from Shinji's mind, or was it the legit Rey that Shinji pulled out at the end of 2.0?
My interpretation was, if you see the actual cockpit, that's real.
Yes.
But whatever is outside of like the cockpit can be interpreted as like imaginary, but because he is physically in the cockpit of Unit 1, like that has to be a physical manifestation, manifestation of her soul. But perhaps the soul wasn't like physically seen unless you have Shinji's infinite synchro rate. So like that's and that's my guess as to how Shinji was able to just walk into Unit 1 like through that portal.
Oh, okay. He doesn't actually have to like go through the whole LCL process.
Yeah, because they're in the anti-universe, and that's why I think because he has the infinite synchro rate in the anti-universe where there's no like physical material, he was able to just like walk into Unit 1. That was my guess.
I see that.
We were like, was the anti-universe when we were like, this is like Dragon Ball Z where it's like, Broly!
Yes!
Like, Shinji!
Gogeta! Go! Broly! Gogeta! Broly!
Go! Yeah!
Next thing you know, this is like the part of any anime where the theme song starts blaring during the character's moment of triumph.
Like, oh. That was the weird thing where it's just like, I know you, like, as somebody who has not been a very big fan of the show, like when I was watching it, essentially when we were watching it, I was watching it like with Nick and KaijuNoir, and it was just like, oh yeah, like Gendo's this one with like the two lights and the different colored eyes, and I'm like, I just see 2 Unit 1s fighting. I don't know.
No, you see, you don't understand. You see, the Unit 13 has like the black patterns and the different shoulders and the different 4 eyes and the little details.
The whole time I'm like, Broly! Shinji! I was just like, yeah, like, I feel like I felt really bad because like that was probably a very big, like, as much as an ass is fan service, like, felt like that was like the culmination of like what EVA people have been like waiting for. We're like, oh yeah, it's Shinji and Gendo going at it. I'm like, there's just 2 Unit 1s fighting. I don't know
you, Dad.
But one's got 4 arms.
Yeah, that's what I was told halfway through.
One.
Yeah.
Where are the 4 arms? I only see 2.
I like how he was just like, but he's got more eyes. I'm like, I'm not looking at the eyes. So yeah, I feel like as somebody who would be like a huge EVA fan, like that was probably like the penultimate fight. I would just be like, oh my god, it's Shinji. But for me, it was just 2 Unit 1s just going at it. I'm like, this is great too. Oh no, don't eat the cheesecake. You take the cheesecake.
We should mention, you probably heard them throughout this recording, ladies and gentlemen, but there are dogs in this call.
We've been trying. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's perfectly fine. They're just staring very intently at your food.
Up for it.
It's like, nope, we gotta scrap this whole audio now. Start from scratch. Lock up the dogs.
No, they're a part of us.
We are them, and they are us.
We named one of them for our sake of our Lord and Savior Godzilla. We got Miss Queen Shisa.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
But then we got like Dabu the house elf, and then Moo Moo like a cow. But
one is Godzilla.
But one is Godzilla related.
So like the last character to, I guess, to briefly talk about. There's sure to be other characters, but I feel like the other major player in this movie is the one that I personally have the most grievances towards, and that is Mari, where she's a character who did not appear in the TV series and was made specifically for the Rebuild series, and she didn't really serve a purpose other than in 2.0 and 3.0 other than to serve as an excuse to show more action. Great action nonetheless, but just like action that's often like divorced from like the main plot going on with the characters from the TV show. And that happens a lot in this movie too. The movie just opens up after the like previously on Evangelion, shit went down. After the recap, it's like a big fight scene in Paris, where you have Mari in this like patched up, jerry-rigged Unit 8, fighting against a bunch of nerved weapons. Kind of like that also does remind me of like the preview from at the end of 3.0, where it shows like this bizarre half 2.0, half 8.0, and of course that's not shown at all.
Nope.
Not at all.
No,
Yeah.
instead we just get the one with the weird. We get an 8.0 with the weird crane arms.
They also talk about some sort of like Vatican Accord, like they have some sort of like Willie and Nerve met together, and they were like, "Hey, we should not fight each other except for in these like certain situations." It's like that was a weird thing where it's just like the Vatican Accords, and like no.
Right, we never learn anything about what the heck the Vatican Accords are.
Well, the Vatican Accords is.
That, you're like, no, we don't talk about that. I'm like, okay.
I think they just explained the one rule in the Vatican Accords is the Vatican Accords can't have more than 3 Avas in one country.
Oh, that's the rule. Okay.
Yeah, that's the rule.
From the,
and that's why
from the
Unit
TV
2
show.
Yeah, and that's why Unit 2 in the rebuilds is like put in like that submerging like tank. When they bring in Unit 3.
Yeah.
So that's like the Vatican Accord of like you can't have more than 3 Avas in a country.
Right. Okay. That is strange. But yeah, as for Mari, so she's often been regulated to action scenes that are often separate from the rest of what's going on in the movie, and she isn't really given any sort of like stronger narrative role up until like the very last minute, I feel, with the revelation that Shinji ultimately ends up in a romantic relationship with her once the world has been rebooted. And I have been told, and to my understanding, Mari is essentially based off of Anno's wife, much like how Shinji was based on Anno himself, and that Mari is there to help Shinji the same way Anno's wife was there for him. And I found that to be very, very interesting, but I feel like that really needed to be established more. Because if anything, it felt like there was more of an established relationship between Mari and Asuka than there ever was between Mari and Shinji. So it kind of honestly came right the fuck out of nowhere. And from what I can understand, that seems to be the biggest critique towards this movie and the quadrilogy as a whole, is that there's nothing done with Mari up until like the last minute. And at that point, it's already too late for me to get some sort of connection with the character. I like the character. I like her personality. I like how very over the top she is. She's got a lot of bravado. She reminds me of a lot of like hot-blooded super robot pilots, like from Mazinger Z or Getter Robo. But they do nothing with her for most of this quadrilogy. And that's like my main serious complaint about this movie here. The action sequences are amazing. The ones she's involved in, some just get so fucking crazy. Like the part where she's got like the chainsaw staff spear thing.
That scene was awesome.
And like she's got like weapons on top of weapons, and she's like combining with different Avas the same way. Like what was it that? I
like how she's like counting them down. She's like 7, 8, 9. It was like, oh.
I mean, it's great, and it does get so ludicrous there. Sometimes it's like hard to keep track of what's going on. But again, from a narrative perspective, I just wish there was more done to her. There was more to this character than just action sequences and buy the toys, buy the action figures, buy the accessory weapons pack. So, what do you guys think about? What do you guys think when it came to the character of Mari, not just from this movie, but the series, the Rebuild series as a whole? Because I know, like Yoko and I, you and I, we've discussed this a little bit in person when we met up in Tokyo.
Well, it's strange because I always end up seeming to like defend Mari for some reason, which is very odd. Because I don't even like have a strong feeling towards her, so it's weird that I have to be the one who like has to defend her, and I'm not like someone who loves Mari or hates her. I'm just like, she's cool, and that's like my general thing is like she's cool. Like and I do understand that critique of like, yes, like she's not a fully developed character in a way, but I guess my somewhat like small excuse for it is that outside of Shinji, I don't think a lot of the characters in the rebuilds are particularly like super fleshed out or as fleshed out as they are in the show.
Right. And I guess that's generally why most hardcore, the biggest of Eva fans always prefer the TV series to the rebuild series.
Right. And of course, like if you made me choose like NGE plus End of Eva or rebuilds, I'm going to choose NGE. Hands down regardless, even though I love the rebuilds. But I think the rebuilds are definitely like supplementary, and you need to watch the show to really appreciate the rebuilds, because they do kind of like skip the backstory stuff, and I feel like knowledge of backstory for the characters from the show helps watching the rebuilds, because you bring your own context to the rebuilds, I guess.
Mhm.
So Mari was kind of a blank slate, and everyone's like really up in arms about her. I really don't like mind her. I think she brings a different energy to Evangelion, which is great. And
Mhm.
and since every character is like a flawed, like broken person, it is kind of refreshing to just see somebody piloting the Ava with so much like joy.
Yeah, she enjoys being a
Yeah,
she's like,
she
hey,
really enjoys it.
piloting a robot is cool.
It's cool,
Yeah.
guys. Yeah, it's fucking badass.
Let's kick some
And-
ass.
She should be like a
Let's
vehicle
fuck
and
shit
like,
up.
Yeah.
But I always had a suspicion about her age, because
Mhm.
even before this movie, I was like, she's drawn differently. And I was like, I can't put my finger on it. Like,
Those
what is
big
it?
Titties. I can't figure it out.
The big titties.
I can't put my hands on it. I mean, finger. I mean.
Ah, I can't put my tits on it. I mean, fuck. But I also do want to push back on some of the fandom that's like, oh my god, Shinji is like ending up with Mari. I don't think there's anything in that scene that indicates that they're like together.
Really?
In my opinion.
I thought it was.
I
No.
like that they're together.
I thought it was pretty apparent.
I think to me,
I guess that's.
I think you can read it as such, but like there is something about the way that they're speaking.
Like they're very flirtatious towards each other.
You know, they're very flirtatious, but like that is that's Mari being Mari, because she
But
kind
then-
of like flirts with everyone.
But then
Shinji
does
is
it.
like,
So he's
you look
learn-
pretty cute as well.
Yeah, he's
and I'm
learning
like-
from her.
Yeah, he's learning from her, but I didn't take it as like, oh, they're together. Like maybe it could be like a blossoming relationship, but I didn't see it. Some fans like the way they talk about that final scene. It's as if they have been together and are like officially like together. But what I like about the ending is like it's very ambiguous as to like, are they romantically together? Are they just like friendly with each other? Like you don't really know.
Together.
So that's my thing, and maybe that's why I'm not so up in arms about the whole ending, is because I never saw it off the bat that they are 100% absolutely like romantically attached. But in terms of like Mari's function in the rebuilds, I don't really have a problem with her, because like I kind of see her as like a Toji in the rebuilds, for example, like someone who is not in the background, but like a supporting character with importance, but not taking away light from Shinji, Asuka, Rei, who are the real main characters.
Right.
I guess.
Go
I
ahead.
guess in life, if Shinji was to have like a relationship, what do you feel like would be the most healthy relationship that he could have with any character?
That's my thing too. Is like everyone was like, "Oh my god, he should be with Asuka." I'm like, no,
he should be with Mari.
Yeah, it would be like a very toxic. Realistically, it'd be a toxic relationship.
Yeah,
these are both broken people who would
do
nothing to help one another. They'd be just, if anything, enabling each other, as if we kind of saw in the TV show itself. They're just a mess and incompatible.
Thank you.
That was like the most fan servicey thing, is to see Shinji with Mari, because it's like, oh yeah, because she's just like, fuck it, I'll do whatever you want. Like I'm cool. I'll do whatever. Like I love, like Mari is probably one of my. As somebody who was new to this and watching all of it once, I loved Mari. Mari was great. I loved Mari so much more after 4 than any time that I love Mari. But it's just like, I feel like she's the perfect, supportive, crazy lady that Shinji needs.
Berserk lady.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's kind of from someone like, if I saw it all the end scenes as like a shipping thing. Is that the right term?
Yeah.
I'd
ship the shit out of those two.
like how you see each person combined with each other person, like these all typically make sense to me. Like, Mari is what would keep Shinji okay. Like, if you actually put Shinji with Rei, it's two very depressive.
It's somebody who was with their mother.
Yeah.
Also incest. Yeah.
Yeah. Also incest. Yes.
Yeah, but it's the same. Like, even if it
like,
wasn't incest,
person,
it's the same thing where it's just like, oh, my boy. It's
and
like,
then
no.
Shinji with Asuka like doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just like Shinji with Mari makes a lot of sense, and then Asuka with man in the bear suit that I can't remember his name.
Kensuke.
Kensuke, like Mari and like Asuka and Kensuke makes a lot of sense. Where it's just like, I don't care what you are. I don't care that you're this robot. Like those two relationships make the most sense out of anything that's come out of the show. And it's like, that was my favorite part about 4 was like those two different words. It's like, like I love when he comes in, he just throws a coat on her. Like, I don't care that you're naked. Like, it's just like, he does that.
It's like for someone as like hot-headed as Asuka, you need someone like more down to earth to kind of
Yeah. And some people were like, "Oh, Shinji should be with Kaoru." I'm like, he's not a human. Like, can we address that?
I guess they all, and then they also paired Kaoru up with Rei. I think imply through that ending.
Again, that's another thing where I'm like, that's what I like about it is like I don't know.
Right, we don't know
how to take it.
We don't know what this new status quo is like.
I feel like that's a relationship that would work as well too, because Rei's very somebody who wants to facilitate somebody. She wants to raise somebody up, and Kaoru was trying to find that in Shinji, where it's just like I want to be good. I want to be good because of you. Where it's just like he needed a mom. He needed that relationship where he needed somebody to build him up. He needed somebody to make him feel good, and he needed somebody.
Right.
And I'm sure Rei would have felt good building him up. Or it's just like all of the relationships that they put in 4, I am 1,000,000% behind.
And I'm glad like you guys brought this up because a lot of the fandom were very upset with Mari's pairing with Shinji, and they were like, "No, it should be Asuka." I'm like,
No.
You guys, like, haven't you seen the show? Like, what are you talking about?
If you saw End of Evangelion, Shinji wanted to strangle the shit out of her.
And he does it, like once in his imagination and once in real life.
Yeah.
So it's like, guys, clearly these can't work. Well, like, they can't work. And then I love so much, and this shows how Shinji has grown, is that they end up at the same beach from End of Eva during Asuka's part of his mentality, and then he confesses his feelings to her because she confessed her feelings to him. But it almost feels like when he says goodbye, it's like, Asuka, you need to find your own journey. So I have to let you go, even though I did have feelings for you. Like, that felt more mature and more like Shinji than all the fandom saying like, "Oh my god, they have to be together." Like, no. The
fact that she was like Unit 2, I think that impeded her character and like the relationship that she would have had with him. Like, I feel like she needed a supportive character. She needed something in her life that built her up.
Right.
She had that inferiority complex where it's just like, I'm nothing. I need to seem like I'm something. And then like the character she was with, where it's just like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm with you. I love you. I support you. Like, I feel like that's why I really liked 4. Like, I loved every ship that happened from that. Where it's just like, I'm with this. Like, as like. I feel like, and then knowing that like Ano was just like, Ano felt like Shinji, and then Mari was his wife, where it's just like, hey, I made this character like my wife. My wife makes me feel like I'm fucking bomb. Like, this is the representation of my love for my wife. I'm like, oh my god, that's fucking great.
And it's even made more apparent when the fact that you see the book that that Ano's wife made, he put in the story. So if it wasn't made any more clear as to, I guess, how Ano felt towards his wife and how much he wanted to represent her in the story. So I love the idea with Mari. I love the idea of her. Well, the one reservation I have with her pairing up with Shinji is the age difference, because she's essentially hooking up with her close friend's child.
So there's a weird thing. This is my interpretation of it, but there's a weird thing in the end when at the end of Instrumentality, she shows up at the beach
in a high school uniform.
In the high school uniform, and I'm like, and then her glasses change.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, her glasses change when she falls into the ocean, and then like comes out. Her glasses change, and then again, like the way she's animated in that scene when she's like turning to Shinji, like she, in my interpretation, she turned 14.
Yeah.
And then when they meet at the train station again, they're both
The
28.
same age, yeah, but
the same age.
Did she?
And it might be one of those things where like,
did her memories get rewritten?
I think that's the tricky part. It's like I don't know. And again, like this is Anno being Anno and not explaining like the small details, which I prefer. Like I like the mystery more, but
yeah,
I don't know how much they remember, but they might have remembered it because I mean, she knows about the DSS choker.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's a big deal there.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, it's kind of weird that he held on to that choker for like the last like 10 however many years.
Yeah.
Right. He was like, fashion statement. I like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the thing. It's like, why did you put that back on? No, stop it. We talked about this. We talked about this for 14 years. Damn it,
Mari.
It might be a lot of like perception of age, like where it's like maybe he feels like, hey, me and my wife that I met, that I modeled Maria, are the same age, but like I feel like she's much more mature than I am. Or like maybe like
potentially, yeah.
Like maybe that's like the representation of like him meeting, or it's just like I feel like I met her and I felt like I was 14 and she was like 30, and I'm like, oh my god, I could be an adult. It's like, yeah, you're an adult. You could be an adult.
Which is very interesting because in all of Anno's wife's artwork and drawings, she draws herself as a baby and then Anno as Anno. So, which is very interesting how, if that is the case, if that's how Anno sees himself, that they both have like the direct opposite opinion of each other, where
which is perfect if you think about it.
Yeah, which is perfect if exactly.
It does also help like kind of reflect with Mari being a very youthful character, very high-spirited, free-spirited, very energetic. Right, yeah. So she's got like I guess you could say the best qualities of youth and maturity, age and experience, all of that stuff rolled into one package.
And giant boobs.
And topped off with that, yes.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yes.
So yeah, I would like to do that. And like her backstory of her like being like associates with Shinji's parents, the older guy, and like she was referred to as the traitor, so it's like she must have like been involved with Instrumentality and the Ava project, but end up like betraying them because she wants to support the good guys. All of that, that would have made for like a great story on its own. And I hear that there's a manga that focuses a bit on that, but its canonicity is questionable from what I understand. But I just wish that all of that interesting backstory was in the Rebuild movies itself. I wish that we didn't have to rely on spin-off. That's a thing that Hollywood is really guilty of. It's like, oh, you don't understand all this shit, you know, like how Palpatine came back? Read the prequel comic, the novel, and all this bullshit. It's
like Halo, there's books. You're like, yeah.
Because her introduction is the Sunny Day song, which is in the green Eva.
Yeah.
8, right?
No, the pink is 8.
She was in like the provisional, like I think it was Unit 5 in 2.0,
right?
And that gets blown up in the end,
right? The same one that blew up off screen in the TV show, so you never saw what that looked like.
Yes.
Unless
I mean, that could be all like Anno's interpretation of like not understanding his relationship with his wife, which it's a weird thing to watch an anime and have to like try to figure out the person who created it and have to figure out his relationship with his wife. It's just like, I feel like I should just ha and just understand what's going on. It's a weird thing about Ava. It's just like, I need to understand this person who made this thing, and I feel like that opens up a door or doesn't open up a door.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like the opposite situation where, like, unlike something like the Super Mario Brothers movie that you guys recently reviewed on Review Roulette, where it's like the behind the scenes story is
hands from side to side.
the behind the scenes story is way more interesting than the movie itself. But here, I feel like the behind the scenes story and the movie are both equally compelling.
Right.
Everything on screen and behind the scenes is all of it is very interesting.
Makes you feel as a fan, just kind of as like a side person, where you feel like you're watching a real life person like figure out their life, whereas like the Mario thing is like, oh yeah, you're fighting with the studio, where it's just like I feel like very intrinsically like attached to Anno. Like I feel like I'm trying to figure out his life. Well, he's trying to figure out it, and I'm just like, it's a weird thing to be like, and like, oh, I like Sailor Moon. It's like, no, you don't understand Ava.
That's the Ava hole in a nutshell. The Ava rabbit hole.
Right.
And it's kind of like, if anything to compare it to, it'd say be comparable to like Roger Waters and Pink Floyd's The Wall, where the album was just Roger Waters just baring his soul to everyone, saying like, this is all the shit, the mental shit that goes on in my head and everything I grew up with, and this is all that I have to, a lot of stuff that I have to been pent up inside, just like bearing his soul to everybody through that music after that album.
And then the nostalgia critic's like, I don't get it.
Yeah, he's being whiny. Stop being whiny.
What review? I don't know what you're talking about. What review? I don't know.
There's never been a review.
There's never been a review. Never.
Why did you have to pull my favorite band into your bullshit? Nostalgia critic, why did you have to pull Slipknot into this bullshit?
And make him sing SpongeBob.
Again, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no recollection of any of this.
I'm gonna live the life of Yoko. I don't know what you're talking about either.
We're just gonna have instrumentality and make sure, like, no more nostalgia critic.
You don't understand.
Instrumentality project, and we're gonna go have our Krabby Patties.
Yes, I'm gonna punch the guy with the glasses. I don't care. Oh, can you imagine if you made an Eva thing, or would you be like, yeah.
But I guess the last thing I want to add on to what Yoko said, where it's like, she, like, while Mari's character, she's kind of just, there. She's like a bonus to everything else that's going on. And I feel like her role in the Rebuild series is kind of like Rebuild's role in the franchise, where we did not need the Rebuild movies, because the TV show is perfectly fine the way it is. Minus its ending for a lot of people. So, like, the Rebuild movies are like a nice little bonus supplementary material to they work as complementary material to the TV show, and I feel like she is representative of that as a bonus, as a neat little entertaining, fun character, bonus character to the story. And
I think that's Oh, sorry.
No, and that's how I enjoy her as well. I do enjoy her for the time that she's on screen, and I, again, like all the concepts and the potential backstory, and her ending up with Shinji. You guys explaining the whole age difference thing does kind of help add some context there. Again, I just wish that I just feel like she had potential to be an even more interesting and more engaging character, and I just feel like, from a storytelling perspective, just having this character like play such a big part in the movie, you'd expect her to have more to her in that case. Right. Again, still like the character, but I wish there was more. I feel like there could have been more there. And I feel like this might have been like another behind the scenes deal, interesting bit of behind the scenes deal, because from what I could research, Anno created Mari during the development of 2.0 for no reason other than to screw with people's fans' expectations.
Yes.
But I feel like he created her.
I feel like he was like, I really love my wife.
Maybe that too. Maybe it's both.
I feel like as somebody who was married and just like really like wants to be like, I really want my husband to be like, hey, there's this character that's kind of like my wife. She's not my wife.
She's got big boobs, and she goes berserk.
Yes.
She goes beef full on.
Oh my god, are you my husband? That's my favorite Diablo type. I love the
So like I feel like when he created this character, he made her with no real plan with what to do with the character. He just wanted to have the character. So I assume that he must have like tossed this character to his writing staff and said, take this character, do what you will with her, I don't care. I just want her to be in the movie. And perhaps the writers were really nervous because they're like, do we include her a lot? Do we heavily include her in the story and potentially upset the character dynamics from the TV show? No, let's not risk that. Let's just put her off to the side so we can let our TV character, the characters from the TV show, still continue to do their thing. So yeah, that was that. I feel like that's kind of what happened there, and then so.
I guess, can you imagine this whole movie without her though?
I think so. Potentially, yeah. I think so.
How does it end for Shinji?
I guess he tries kind of like learns to love himself maybe by the end.
I think there was a possibility of her inclusion maybe not being as integral as I think the filmmakers maybe potentially want it to be. However, I think it's integral enough where if you pull her out of the story, like some of the emotionality of the few of the characters, like, and in this movie in particular, especially Asuka, might be potentially different, but I
Possibly,
do get,
because this seems to be like a she has a begrudging friendship with Mari.
Yeah, it's like a haha, like you piss me off, but I like you, but I'm not gonna express it, like that kind of thing.
Like I'm happy to have you in my life, but I'm too emotionally reserved to admit it.
Exactly.
I think there was one scene where because obviously like the three of us had watched it, I'm like, are they together? And you're like,
right, that was weird.
And then they get away from it. I'm like, I feel like that would be a cool thing where they like, oh, like Shinji like these two chicks. They kind of like each other.
Shinji's like the third wheel that's left out.
Move over, Shinji.
You guys can like imagine this movie without Mari, but I feel like I can't imagine it without her.
Okay.
I can't. I feel like a lot of people would have been like, oh, it ends with him being happy with himself, but then he ends up with like insert Rei or insert Asuka. Like
right.
I feel like,
or for fans, Kawaru.
Like, there's no way this movie ends with Shinji being like, I feel like this character needs support. Like, he needs a healer.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Or it could have been just him and Pen just leaving.
The one for Pen was sad, and I feel like the fact that there was no Pen.
No, you got Pen's kid descendants.
I needed Pen. I need an OG Pen.
Maybe they're all clones of Pen. You never know.
But it's weird to think of this movie without Kari, and then it's interesting to hear people being like, "Oh yeah, I feel like he could have been fine." It's like, no, he could not have been. Like, Shinji needs support.
Yeah, like Asuka said in the movie itself, he needs a mother.
He needs a mother. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And that's why I was just like, people have been like, if you would have had that and not had her, they've been like, oh yeah, he ends up with Rei, which is just like really fucked up.
No, because
yeah,
she doesn't really have as much as she wants to be there for Shinji, she's pre-programmed. She in a way she's doesn't have what Shinji needs for a relationship to work. Yeah, she's there to make him happy, but in a way that's not like, I guess you can say genuine per se, or like a.
It's like superficial.
Superficial. But not understand the actions. Like she's there to like, I'm supposed to hold this baby.
Right. She doesn't have like her own like agency. She would essentially be there to do whatever Shinji wants her to do, and that's not how a relationship should work.
Right.
I feel like that whole end part where she like understood why she wanted to do those things, that was the biggest impact, where she's like, oh, I wanted to hold this child more. It's just like, oh, you actually understood why you wanted to do that, as opposed to like, I should do this thing because I'm told to do this thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess like this leads me to like the ending itself, where I mentioned before that Shinji chooses to retcon the world into one where in this new timeline, Evangelions never existed and everyone lives happily ever after. Yeah, I've heard some people criticize this ending for being too happy of an ending. The argument I've heard is that it sort of flies in the face of the theme of that we've been talking about earlier in this podcast, where you cannot change the past, rather you have to live with your decisions and work towards improving yourself for having a better future. But here he's literally changing the past, undoing everything horrible that he did at the end of 2.0 and during 3.0. So some people have an issue with that, where it's like he is going back and undoing all the bad stuff he did, which flies in the...
Isn't he?
What's that?
Isn't he older?
No, he retconned everything, and then that's like a 14-year time jump from the beach sequence to the final sequence. So, the idea that you cannot undo what you have done, yet he did undo what he had done. He undid everything.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that. I disagree simply because of the fact that it is said in that scene with Rey that he's not going to redo the world or redo time, but rewrite. So, and that's why I like the fact that, for example, like Masato is still dead.
Oh, she is?
Yeah, because well, I assume so, because
you don't show her.
None of the people that
they don't
died,
show a whole lot of characters.
Yeah, they don't. But what I assume is anyone who has died is still dead. But the only thing that's changed is the fact that the Evas don't exist. So Shinji's actions, technically, in a way, the near third impact that killed a whole bunch of people, that still technically happened, and all those people are still dead, but the world is not, like, red.
But I thought
that the people have still died, yeah.
But remember when you see all the people and animals fall from the sky? I thought that was him returning all those people he killed.
Right, but those are the people, I think those, they explain, are like the commodities of life. But, like, for example, like, Masato wasn't a part of that. So, the people who died...
Oh, between, like, third impact and near third impact and this.
So all the people that, like, might have perished in between that time, and the people that didn't become cores. So yeah, this is very fucking complicated. It's Evangelion, after all. So all the people who became the cores for Eva Infinity came back, because those are the people that, like, started raining from the sky and everything. But so the people who didn't become cores and just died, those people, I believe, are still dead. And Shinji did not go back in time and undo that, because he says in dialogue that he won't go back in time to redo that stuff. So Misato's sacrifice is still there, and all the people from Nerve or Wheelay that have died are still dead.
And those those that are still around are because they managed to survive the events of 3.0 and 4.0.
Yeah. And, like, Kaji is still dead. It seems like, because
oh, really? Because Kaji, you see him talking to Kaworu.
But that is kind of, it's part of instrumentality, so I took it as a memory / flashback, because Kaoru for a certain time was the leader of Nerve, because he's wearing Gendo's jacket.
Yeah,
and
that took me by surprise, by the way.
Yeah, that was interesting. And just a very interesting tidbit, very quickly, is that the end preview stinger for the end of 2.0, that's now canon. So I think that Kaji is still dead in the timeline when the world basically resets. I think Masato is dead and Kaji is dead, because of the fact that Shinji is not wasting the sacrifices of the people that have died. So some people did claim that Shinji is running away from the problem by resetting the world, but in my opinion, he wasn't running away. In turn, he was, like, actively trying to save what they had, because Shinji was ready to pierce himself with the spear.
Right.
Before Yui stepped in and pushed him out of the way. So he was basically about to kill himself to save all of mankind. So I don't think it's him running away. It's just him
given a second
running
chance.
to the exactly. It's him running to reset the world and save the world, and it's not regarding his own life. He could throw away his life to save everyone else.
Right. He was willing to make the big sacrifice that you would expect a protagonist to make in order to undo this big grave mistake that he or she made.
Exactly.
If that was the case, the fact that he was alive, I feel like the other people would be alive. It's just the fact that he didn't come in contact with them. Like, it seems sad that he would be like, I get to live, but like, hey, you and your son, fuck you. Like, your sacrifice meant something. It's like, wouldn't he want them to live?
I mean, he did say he wasn't going to redo time, and if he's not redoing time, that means that Misato and Kaji will still be dead.
And I guess
they died at 2 different times, though, so it depended on what time that he picked for them to redo.
I think technically it's still the same time, so he was going to reset the world starting from right after Misato, because Misato's death is what creates the spear of Gaius.
The super magical spear that undoes everything.
Exactly.
Kaji's dead way before her.
Yeah, Kaji's dead way before her.
Yeah,
Kaji's been like long dead.
So then, does he get to live in this new?
No, I think he's still dead.
We don't know how he died, though. So
it's I think
I died.
I think he crashed because in 3.0, I went back to watch 3.0 after this last one, and I wasn't gonna say 3.0 plus 1.0. It's just too long.
Yeah, just 4.0.
The last one. Final. There we go. Final. Ava Final.
Bracket.
In 3.0, there's a shot of a broken nerve aircraft, and in the flashback in Ava Final, you can see that Kaji is about to board that aircraft, the same aircraft. So it does heavily imply that he stopped what was happening.
Right, because there's still a whole lot of stuff that went down between 2.0 and 3.0 that we don't know about, such as the case with the big giant Lilin with the head of Koru's Ava.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I get when do you believe that time like diverged? Like, when is it?
I think after everything went red, like I think Shinji undid everything up to the point where everything turned red, and then anybody who died after everything turned red, that cannot be undone.
Right. I think the action, because he's not running away from his actions, and that's consistent with his theme, and I think he would be running. I think the argument would be he would be redoing if Misato and Kaji were still alive. Like, that would be a redo, and that might betray the message of what he was doing.
Right.
But the fact that the people who died, who didn't become cores, are still dead, I think enforces the fact that Shinji has to now accept the deaths of people. And that's what Gendo remarks is like, oh, you've grown up because you were able to accept the wishes and deaths of others. So I think it's more fitting for the fact that Misato is still dead, and in turn saved the world by creating the spear.
Oh, because essentially he was able to accept that when Gendo couldn't accept the Yari, or like that was Dragon's mother figure.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense when you explain it that way, because I feel like everything was left so vague by the end that it appeared as though everything was undone. So it didn't feel like there were any stakes or for any sort of storytelling, you got to make some level of sacrifice
Absolutely,
to make the ending feel more impactful. Whether like something as classic as the first Star Wars movie,
right?
Obi-Wan ended up losing his life. A lot of movies tend to they lose the mentor figure along the way. People the more sacrifice you have, the more I guess rewarding it feels that so many people had to give up everything to get to what they want.
It's the hero's journey. The classic hero's journey.
Right.
That's why I was kind of surprised. We're we're going to talk about this last character, and I was totally ready for you to be like, so Masato, and you're like, Mari, and I'm like, I thought we were going to talk about Masato.
Well, in a way, I did want to eventually talk about Masato. It's only we've been going on for 2.5 hours, I think, or
I'm ready to go to bed.
Almost 3 hours, and I only wanted to cover the core characters. But I am glad that we did.
How is Masato not a core character?
You're right, because honestly, she is my favorite character from the television series.
My favorite
character as a whole. So I'm glad that we can. I do want to briefly touch on her after we talk about this ending, but I am very glad that because I did want to bring up this point because I like the ending a lot. But upon hearing this other people's take on the ending, I was very curious to know what you guys thought of this other side of the argument, just to play devil's advocate, because I do think it's a very interesting conversation to have in terms of how hopeful and optimistic this ending is in comparison to End of Evangelion, where with End of Evangelion, it is implied that Shinji still has a lot of room to grow. It's a very bittersweet ending where it's Shinji still has room to grow, whereas at the end of this movie, Shinji has grown. He is able to mentally and physically, literally grow. As a person, he's no longer an adult. He's finally moved on. He's been able to overcome that his personal shit, and is able to move on with his life. He's no longer stunted physically, and mentally, and figuratively, and literally.
Right. And there was a beautiful reflection from the end of the show, and then this ending, because the end of the TV show is everyone consoling Shinji and then congratulating him at the end. But this ending is
congratulations.
But this
I was so
this ending,
somebody who had never seen any of that shit. I'm like, what is going on?
Oh my god! But then this ending is Shinji consoling everyone.
Yeah.
So I found that an actually a very subtle way to show character growth. I thought that was a very interesting way to tie between the end of NGE and the end of the rebuilds, and then obviously, being a huge fan of the end of Evangelion, I just love that they took certain shots from End of Eva and just reanimated them and then spliced them in. That was really cool.
And there was that entire montage of all the title sequences. I
was oh my, so meta.
All the stock fast forwarded stock footage from episode 1 all the way to now.
Right. It's the same montage from End of Eva that was played, projected in the background. And I was to piggyback what you said a little bit ago, that these movies, I think more so with this last one, feels even more supplementary to the show because it does tie into the show and make them canon to the rebuilds as well, and that it's going to loop. So even more so now, I am on the argument that you cannot watch the rebuilds without watching the show. That's
right.
That's been my opinion for a while, but now it's even more concrete of oh shit, it's so connected to the original show. It's not going to be satisfying to watch that ending without watching the show.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And even with Kaoru, I don't know how to pronounce his name because there's a W in Romaji in English lettering. But
Kaoru, I guess.
Kaoru, yeah, and that's a weird thing because I have a friend named Kaoru, but there's no W. It's Kaoru.
Kaoru. Okay, yeah.
But here it's
on the inside now.
Kaworu, yeah.
Yeah, but they don't say Kaworu, it's just Kaoru. Yeah. So I'm Kaoru, is it the same or not? So I guess with Kaoru, it's weird for me to say that because I'm thinking of my friend right now.
You just see his head exploding from his body. You're like, oh no.
The high seas have run rampant.
The high seas, the Fanta.
So the character, he admits that he seemingly has all the memories for each past life he has lived.
Yeah.
Each time the universe reboots, and you see all those coffins, which I guess for each life he has lived, and how many times he's been through this same old song and dance. But he admits that he has been watching over Shinji this entire time, and his purpose is to help Shinji, to help eventually end this cycle. And earlier before, as he was talking to Kaji, or at least maybe a memory of Kaji, because again, who knows what's going on?
Who knows? Yeah.
Kaji implies that, I guess he seems to imply that, hey, with Misato and I dead, our son is going to need someone to watch over him. Could you please do this for him? Could you please kind of be there to be his guardian or guiding light? So it's kind of it's a bit of a sweet moment, because it's like I did like that there ended up being a son between Misato and Kaji.
That was nice. Yeah.
Super tragic that the son never got to know his parents. And it does give like a little hopefulness for it. It was a big motivation for Shinji to want to protect all this like new generation of people born after near third impact. It's kind of like, what was it, like Avengers Endgame, where it's like after the 5-year period,
blip,
after the blip, there's like Iron Man has a daughter now. It's like, oh, we can't undo everything because there's new people we got to look after now.
I guess what's like composer in Japanese, because I feel like he's like a composer, or it's like he's watching this piece of music like repeat.
Oh, like, yeah, okay.
Like, I feel like he's just watching, like, as somebody who like played an instrument in elementary school. I'm like, I distinctly remember that repeat symbol is like you gotta do it over again. It's like, I feel like he kind of watched this whole thing repeat over and over again. It's just like he's just kind of like putting his own little flair on different things. Where it's like, it'd be interesting to know, but like what that is in Japanese and in kanji.
Right.
Come on, grown people. What is it in Japanese?
I don't.
Sorry, I don't. It's too specific. It's too specific.
It's so
of a word.
specific. Yeah, I was like,
I'll check right now. Like, Somebody talk.
I was like, what? I don't know that one.
Sakyoku. Sakyoku.
Come on, Esty. What is it?
It's like it's orale sakyoku.
Yeah, like once you start saying like it repeated, I'm like, oh, like he's like the composer, like he's watching everything happen over and over again.
Right.
That has to be very depressing.
Oh yeah, and for him to be still resilient and strong, putting on a smile for Shinji, trying to be the one person to like console him without any strings attached, because. Again, like I do like with Misato, I guess to sort of like transition to talk about her. What I found so fascinating with Misato is that she tries to be there to support Shinji, but of course she's got her own mental shit to deal with, her own sense of isolation, her own complicated feelings towards Kaji, so she couldn't be there be like the proper guardian for him that she wanted to be, and the fact that there is a part of her, in my interpretation, there was a part of her that took Shinji under her wing to sort of make herself feel better more than to make Shinji feel better.
I think that's more apparent in 4, yeah. Like with the watermelons.
That's possible, yeah. So like with Kaoru, what made him special is that he wanted to reach out and help Shinji emotionally for no reason other than he just wanted to help Shinji. Unlike Misato, that's what made him more impact. What made him have such an impact on Shinji's life, and why he fell into his depressive slump once he died in any version of the story. But yeah, as for Misato, she definitely had like a huge shift in personality for 3.0, having this very cold exterior. Not wanting to really address Shinji directly, and it's very interesting to have her sort of have this return to form for her, where she's been trying to bury her feelings for Shinji, her sympathy towards Shinji. Everyone sort of encouraging her to not look at him as like the person they once knew, but see him as like this dangerous person who destroyed the world. And there's that part of her that cannot let go of that, and she eventually ends up literally taking a bullet for Shinji and willing to give him that chance, and apologizes for the way she treated him. And Shinji, being a more mature person, accepts her apology and is just happy to see her back in his life. I really love the scenes with Misato involved, and just her sort of like taking off the hat, letting her hair grow loose, seeing like the classic image of her that a lot of people remember her as, and having her this like one final blaze of glory, final sacrifice. I think that's kind of like what they were trying to build up for when it came to Asuka. Unfortunately, she, ended up failing, but her final moment of glory for Misato was such a great and it's as amazing as it is heartbreaking to see. It's heartwarming, it's heartbreaking, it's all these emotional feelings for her final sequence.
I was just thinking about like the one scene where like Shinji is at the doctor's house, and like the doctor's wife's
Toji
dad, Toji's father-in-law is
yes.
like, he's like, why aren't you like excited or like accepting of like this? It was just a very
food.
Food.
Yeah, it was just a very interesting like separation of like the different generations of like, oh, this is what you're supposed to do, and it's just like, no, you kind of have to accept like everybody's going through their own thing. It's like, no, you're supposed to be appreciative of the food. It's like,
he does not understand. Like, I feel like there's a lot of people out there that doesn't understand like the nature of depression and like going through such emotional turmoil. There are people who just cannot understand or can't fathom or just simply don't know about this. Yeah.
Like, can't you just like, what's wrong with you? Can't you just be excited? It's like, no, like, physiologically, I cannot accept that.
Right, there is a literal chemical imbalance in my brain that is preventing me from enjoying life.
Like when we were talking about I was just like the whole time I'm just like, oh yeah, that right. Like his father-in-law was just like, you should be happy about the food. It's just like he kind of brought about this whole entire existence that you're living in, like. Maybe you should just let that like 15-year-old kid like come to like, no, be happy. It's just like, oh. That was it.
Sorry. Any other words on Misato?
No, I think it was very touching to also see her like take the bullet for Shinji. I thought that was very heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time. And then, interestingly enough, the score that plays in the background during that scene is the orchestral version of the score that plays when she's convincing Shinji to get in the Eva in 1.0. So I was like, oh, that's a very like subtle musical cue to showcase like how far their relationship has come, because it's the same score from the first one. So in general, like, it was really cool to see her come back and to still be that guardian. And then it does kind of like choke me up whenever I hear her say like, I take full responsibility for Shinji's actions. I'm like, oh man, like after all that's happened, like she still like got his back. Like that's such a good like relationship between the two of them. So that's always like just it's great to see.
Absolutely, yeah. And honestly, I feel like I like this final interaction between the two of them more than the end of Evangelion, only because I always thought the fact that she kisses Shinji in that movie is weird. Again, she's trying to be that parental figure, and then to do that, it's like, wait, no, now you ruined it.
No.
I don't know if she was just being desperate to get some kind of reaction out of Shinji. I don't know. But yes, I like this one much better. Suck it, Eva fans. Eva suck it, end of Eva purists. Sorry, go ahead.
No. The only thing I didn't really like was like the weird exposition dumps that they gave to her, like when she's explaining,
like gods and this stuff.
Yeah, it's just like you're explaining to somebody who has been with you this entire time. It's just like it'd be like if I was explaining like marriage to Nick, be like, so we're married. and then like we're together. It's just like, yeah, no shit. Like that's the whole thing that we're like she's explaining to like
you have to do it Ava ways, like the certificate of the chosen has been signed.
Yeah, and it's just like the whole time they were literally just looking at like watermelon seeds, and then she's explaining to this woman who has been with her this entire time, like the whole plot of like why they have this thing, and she's just like,
oh, to Ritsuko,
bitch, I know.
Yeah.
It's
right.
it's like Ritsuko knows. It's just like she understands. Like her mother didn't die to become a computer in this like existence, which I had to remember the entire time I watched this. But it's just like, you're explaining to somebody who is well aware of what's going on. It's like, yeah, we made an arc. It's like, can you imagine if Noah was explaining to his wife, it's like, hey, we'll build this boat. It's just like, yeah, no shit. Like, I've been with you this whole time. So I did not enjoy the, like, exposition dumps that they gave to her. Like, I felt like her character was above that.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't need to explain the arcs to us. Like, I didn't need to know, like, I swear the one time when we were watching it was like, oh, like, they're dandelion seeds that are little seeds.
Oh, yeah, that spread out like that.
Oh, yeah. Like they did not need to do that. Like I felt ashamed for both of them to be like, oh yeah, we made an arc. But yeah, that was my only thing.
I guess like that does remind me of the very weird bits of exposition whenever they try to explain like lore and stuff, like how Gendo somehow became immortal like an angel, or how they end up creating the new spear of Gaia, or how or how the was it the dream world works. Anytime they try to delve into that lore, things just get really confusing for me, because on top of just all this new jargon and terminology that's just thrown at you without warning, I feel like some of the English also feels a little wonky and not very like native English speaker sounding. So I wonder if this is like an issue with Studio Kara not being able to have characters exposit information in a way that sounds natural. We were watching, Nick, Laura, and I were all watching the English dub, by the way, for the folks listening. So like the English dub was like, very well done, voice acting top notch. Writing was for the most part, very competent, but there were just these moments of exposition and all this like in-universe terminology and jargon where just things became a very confusing to follow.
I feel like they would just throw like German words in to be like, oh yeah, it's just like Offenheimen Angel. It's like, oh okay. Like I felt like they would
sure, I know what that is.
yeah, it's just like I feel like they would just throw these terms in to just like dispel like, oh like, okay, like I feel like all of the angels have like weird German sounding like
biblical names.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I don't quite okay, I'm there. Like I enjoyed. It'd be interesting to watch the dubbed or like the sub version. Yeah. But yeah, that was the weird thing about like I feel like Ritsuko was just like, oh, it's Offenheimen Hagen. Yeah, I was like, yes, it is. And then there was like a rainbow arc that came out. I'm like, yeah, and then there's this weird fight scene that they're falling, and I'm like, what are they falling toward? Like, where are they?
What's up with the white hexagons? That why is there a pyramid floating in the sky?
We're gonna restart the third impact that wasn't started, but then we're gonna restart. I'm like, did it happen?
We're gonna do the fourth impact, and then the fifth impact, and this impact, and that impact, and inspectrality, and destroyed.
Yeah, like I loved all of the things that were happening that I was watching, but that was a weird thing. I didn't care. It was just like the Broly fight.
Oh no!
Don't care what's going on, but visually it is spectacular. And then like that's pretty much the end of 4, where you're like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, the end of 4 is like, wee!
Right? Yeah.
Gendo! You're like, yes, Gendo. Like, yes. Yeah.
This is the spear that will pierce the heavens. That's a Gurren Lagann reference.
Like, yes. We have all been collectively giving you our soul energy.
Yes.
But yeah, that was the weird thing where it's just like it's a very interesting like scale where it's just like I'm following. I don't give a shit. This looks cool. It's just like it's that balance.
This is still Antarctic, though, right?
Right.
I think I literally asked you that like 2 minutes into something. Like, is this the Arctic?
Oh yeah.
Are we in it? Are you like?
It's like I
yes.
think.
I think you just told me yes, and I'm like, okay.
It's like sure.
Of course.
Yeah. That's pretty much what I was. I'm like, yep.
Well, what else does it look like? I don't know. Do you? So Yoko, did you have any of this experience? Ever had any of this confusion that the three of us experienced? Whether it's the action, the visuals, the jargon, the exposition, the translations.
I never had. It was more so when I saw it in theaters in Japan because I couldn't understand all of it.
Yeah.
So I had to wait for the subtitles to be released to like watch it. So when the subs finally came out, I finally got like a full picture of it. But like I think based on the subs, even like seeing it at the theater, I got like like 80% of it.
Okay.
But there was like small things that like I didn't know. For example, that all the nerve ships had names.
Right.
I didn't catch that. Or like small things about the anti-universe that like I didn't catch the first time. Mm-hmm. So the smaller details I didn't get.
The names of the nerve ships, because Ritsuku was like, "Oh, it's this." It's like, how do you know what's going on?
What is this?
What is
it established that this was this?
That was the weirdest part because she's like, "Oh, they went to like this something 0.8," and I'm like, "How do you know what's going on?" Like it was a weird thing to follow. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah, it's a bit confusing, but I think for the most part, I pretty much got it, and I think like exposition wise too, I think it's a little wonky, but I think it sounds better in Japanese if that makes sense.
Probably, yeah.
Like I get the context of why they're saying it more. Oddly enough.
I wonder if them like making it the different translations with them trying to make it sound cooler for like American audiences were like, it's this weird sounding thing, but like, okay, yeah, cool.
But they don't know how to.
They don't know how.
This is
why
like,
that's all it takes. You just say a weird German sounding word, be like, okay. Yeah.
You're just making shit up at this point.
I don't care. It sounds appropriate. It's good.
I mean, I still don't know what the hell happened to Gendo.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess he most likely pierced himself with the Gaia spear with...
Uh-oh.
In Unit 1?
Oh, okay. Can you repeat yourself? Because you were kind of roboting there.
Oh, shit. So, Gendo most likely pierced himself with the Spear of Gaius in Unit 13 with Yui in Unit 1. So he probably died in the process of instrumentality to, I guess, like, fulfill Shinji's wishes and his wishes as well.
No. I mean, like, what happened to him that caused him to be immortal prior to the climax?
Oh.
That's what I mean.
What gave him the
my bad.
Cyclops?
What gave him the Gaigan eyes?
Yeah.
He used the what's it called? He used the key of Nebuchadnezzar. That
what the fuck
Kaji...
is the key of Nebuchadnezzar?
Kaji...
Are you making shit up too?
No. Kaji gives it to him in 2.0 in the briefcase. Like he opens it and he's like, "That's the key of Nebuchadnezzar." So it's like,
which was Adam in the TV series.
Yeah, which is Adam in the TV show. So it's like,
I feel like you're just like, I'm sitting on Revelations. Let me pull this out of my ass. Nebuchadnezzar. You're like, ugh.
So he's got the key of bullshit, and then
he's got a key, and then I guess that turned him into Cyclops.
Inkashar.
Okay, because I didn't remember that at all. So when they mentioned the key, I was like, what are you talking about?
Right?
And then they had, like, that was the weirdest thing, because, like, there was a key, and then they had to recreate that key, and then, like, she sounded like she knew just exactly how to recreate that key. She's like, obviously we need to take this and this, and I'm just like, this is math I don't understand. This is biblical references I don't understand.
It's all being translated by a team that's not as competent as
Right.
This is all Yoko's fault for being excited at the number.
Crap.
Yeah.
The blames.
Get excited.
So I guess to finally wrap things up, we've been going at this for 3 hours now, but it's been a really, really fun 3 hours.
I'm just like, this is gonna be a bitch to edit.
No, I'm not editing. I'm not taking anything out here.
Oh boy, it's gonna be a fucking monster podcast.
Yes, it will be. This will be.
I would appreciate if you took the brown people part out.
This will be our, end
end of
Ava 4.0 podcast.
Oh.
You cannot review. That's what we call it. Evangelion 4.0. You cannot review.
Cannot review.
Yeah.
Guest starring Yoko Higuchi and Lora. So, final thoughts. How do you feel overall about the movie overall? How do you see it as a movie, as a conclusion to the Rebuild series, as a conclusion to the franchise as a whole, and I guess just any and all final thoughts. Yoko?
Yeah, I think this is honestly a remarkable movie in so many different ways, and we haven't really touched upon this yet, but the filmmaking in 3.0, 4.0 is so impressive. Mm-hmm. It's honestly crazy. Some of the sequences are just jaw-dropping, like the one that sticks out to me the most is when Asuka is force-feeding Shinji, and it's got that like handheld camera movement. Like, that's really just stuff that we don't see in animation, and that there's that like montage of Rei with the song "Hand of Fate" playing, and she's standing with Shinji, and they even do like time lapse in animation, like stuff like that. Really is very innovative for anime and animation in general. So there's a lot of stuff like that on the technical aspects that really do impress me from a filmmaker standpoint. I think on a technical level, this movie is perfect. It's got so many like different layers upon layers of really like interesting stuff. And from an emotional and story perspective too, it's just really remarkable how much stuff that they were able to cram into a 155 minutes runtime, because that may seem long, but it's not. It's really not that long. And they were able to close all these arcs and all these storylines and plot threads. So the fact that they were able to do it, and on top of that, close not only the rebuilds but the whole franchise, was very impressive. So I'm so happy how this turned out. I couldn't have asked for a better ending, and it's like quickly becoming one of my favorite movies of all time, to be honest. Like, it's very like the more I watch it, the more I'm like, oh shit, like I didn't notice this piece of filmmaking or this piece of filmmaking. And like, I think I've gotten the narrative stuff out of the way, and I get the narrative stuff. But now as I'm watching it over and over again, like I see the small subtle filmmaking details that really get to me. So that stuff really is impressive. So Anno just pulled all of his big guns for this movie, so I couldn't have asked for a better movie and a better ending for this franchise. Like, it's just really, really impressive how it's even made. Right.
What was it earlier before you? Oh yeah, now I remember. So the last question I want to ask you was, which would you prefer? End of Evangelion or Evangelion 4.0?
End of Eva.
Okay, so you're still going with you would still stick with End of Eva.
I think there is a genuine madness in End of Eva that I don't see in any movie that's ever made. There is like a true like insanity to that movie that I think is very special. And even though I adore this movie, but I think the End of Eva is just like it's just a hair above. But if someone had a gun to my head and forced me to pick one, I'm picking End of Eva.
Okay then. Yep, very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I guess let's check out what Nick's final thoughts are on Eva 4.0.
Oh, let's see. I mean, I really liked it overall. I feel like it completed the whole Eva story to me. I mean, I guess looking back at like the whole like end of Evangelion, like leading all into this, it does just feel like a perfect connection to it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know else like as a good way to say that. Like, I just kind of feel like this is just a continuation now at this point.
Mm-hmm.
The rebuild movies just feel like a sequel. I mean, as they are intended to be.
Do you want more Eva, or do you feel like this is complete?
Oh, no. This is... I don't need any more.
Yeah, no more, please. Like end it here.
End of Evangelion. You cannot continue.
Yeah.
This reminds me of... I was thinking of Twin Peaks Season 3, and the more I think about it, the more I like how that ended.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel this is the same. I like how this ends, and I don't need any more.
Oh my god, this is Twin Peaks.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Excellent, then. And how do you feel about the whole thing, Laura?
I guess as someone who's not been a fan since the whole time, as all of you all have been, I really liked 4. I felt like, from what I have seen in the condensed time that I saw it, I felt like it was a very appropriate ending. I don't want any more, and it felt like it made sense. It is weird to watch a show, and I feel like you have to kind of understand like the creator of the show. You have to understand the show and like the different aspects of the show.
A lot of context behind the media itself. I think it's one of those interesting things where it's like you could watch it in a vacuum, but it does feel like a more rewarding experience to know everything around the medium as a whole.
Well, like I would wonder what, like, if this is akin to your experience where, like, I felt like when I watched it, it was in a vacuum where I'm just like, oh, this is a cool show about a dude and like some robots, and like those robots look cool. Like I kind of felt like that, and then like Nick was just like, no, you don't understand. And then it's like after watching all of Eva, and then like as somebody like I feel like one of the main reasons why me and Nick got along very quickly in the beginning of our relationship was just like, oh, I really like Godzilla, and then like right after we started dating, that's when like Shin Godzilla took off, where it's just like, oh my god, this is the culmination of the two of the things that we love together. And it was just like watching like it. I can't imagine watching Shin Godzilla and not have known what Eva was. Like I feel like that would be a disgrace to watch, like the experience that I had watching Shin Godzilla. And so I was very appreciative that Nick brought that experience to me. But yeah, it's a weird, like I like Eva, and I like that I got to experience in a way that a lot of people get really mad about any other show, where it's just like, I waited 10 years. This was like, oh yeah, I watched it, and then I watched it, and then I was done. But yeah, I loved 4. I loved the ending of this. I loved that Shinji and Mari were together. Mari might be my favorite character, and that might be some sort of relationship to the fact that I did not watch this over the long span of things. But yeah, I liked Mari. I like that you have to like know all the things about Eva. I love thinking about Eva. Like I love thinking about like a relationship where like, oh, that's your mother inside of a mech. That is a deep thing to have to think about.
It's a literal cradle around this child.
Right.
Yeah, like literally, like there's a plug.
The mother is the umbilical cord. Yeah. The mother is carrying the child inside her.
Yeah, and then that berserk rage is just mother love. It's just mother love around. It's like it was a weird thing to think about.
You stay away from my baby.
Yeah, and then like each different Eva like represents that love differently. Whereas Asuka's is like, oh yeah, it went berserk, and then fuck it, I don't care.
Like when you hear like a mom picks up a whole car,
like
to save like her
mother, like berserk rage, like. Eva is one of those things where it's not like Dragon Ball Z, where it's just like Kamehameha and I'm moving up.
Right.
Eva's like singular point where you sit there and you like think about like the different implications of every singular point of the show, where it's just like, oh yeah, like that's literally your mom. It's like I just think of my mom as like covered in like plating. Like I just think of like her being like, you fuck with my child. It's like, yeah. I feel lucky to be like, oh, I'd be Shinji, where she's like, I will fuck you up. This is like, yeah, that's my mom. She'll fuck you up. This is like, and then other people have different relationships. But yeah, I like Eva. Watch number 4.
Awesome.
Could I have one?
Yes.
Could I have one thing?
No.
You cannot add one more thing.
You cannot add. Click. I didn't mean to say like I know Yoko said preferring end, and I wonder if this is just me right now in the state, and I'm sure it'll change again back and forth as like the Blu-ray comes out.
Of the whole thing.
Yes, exactly. But as of right now, I would pick 4 over end, and maybe that's my own personal state at the moment, with like having similar depression and
Shinji.
anxiety issues as Shinji, but like actually seeing a happy ending is something I don't see, and like actually seeing that for Shinji in the group, like this actually makes a lot of sense.
Well, it's weird thinking, because essentially, like, if you think of like, I think of you as Shinji, but like most people probably think of Ano as Shinji, where it's like you want him to be happy, you want him to be with his wife. Like it's weird to think of like, I don't care that you made this character to be your wife. I want you to be with like the most toxic. I want you to be Asuka. You should.
What are you, stupid?
I feel like 4 is his answer to being like, don't you want me to be happy? It's like, no, you make good content when you're sad. It's like,
no.
That's right. More. What is it? The notes at the beginning of end. All the
there's just people sitting on their toilet. It's like, no, it's like you should want him to be happy. Like maybe he'd make great content. It's just like, yeah, it's just like I like 4. I feel like you like 4 for the same reasons. Where it's like he should be happy.
How much you want?
Be happy.
How much you want to bet that like a lot of Eva fans are going to be upset that Eva's over and hate the fact that Ano's worked on Godzilla and is going to work on Ultraman and Kamen Rider next.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a common thread.
But that's so sad because it's like he wanted to do Ultraman and that's why he did Eva. And like now he's doing Ultraman. It's like you should be so fucking excited to watch Ultraman.
He wanted to do at one point early in his career. He wanted to do Mazinger Z, and so he made Gunbuster, and it's amazing.
Yeah. It's like I want to watch the movie of somebody who was so excited to do this that he made a whole sad, depressing anime. Like I don't give a shit about Ultraman. I want to watch Ultraman just because of Eva and just because of knowing what Ultraman was. Like I want to watch. Is it still called Shin Ultraman?
Yes.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, like, I know there's, like, Shin Kamen Rider, so I've been like, I want to watch Shin Ultraman, like, well, actually, this is, like, fuck you, man, like...
Well, like, actually, there was a Shin Kamen Rider previously, that has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, so it's just like, I've never been more excited to watch Ultraman, which is something I never cared about, because it seems like that's something that Ano wants to do, and it's like, if somebody wants to do something that they made the thing that you like, you should watch. Like that's why I don't know. That's a long tangent of me really liking the Titan show, but I was like,
the Titan show.
What did he do? He did that one movie we saw that nobody liked, but I liked.
Attack on Titan.
Yeah, I really liked Attack on Titan.
Oh,
that
Titan.
That was Shinji Higuchi's
Shinji
duology. That was his best friend's project.
Yeah. Oh, I thought
that was Uncle Higuchi. That was Yoko's uncle doing that.
That's Uncle Higuchi.
Oh, Uncle Higuchi did it. Okay. I thought. Oh, is it just Shin Godzilla where he was just like, "Hey, bro, we should make this movie"?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense because like Shin Godzilla might be like my favorite, most recent Godzilla thing, where I'm just like, oh yeah, this is what Godzilla should be.
Mm-hmm.
Which is true. You should just let people do the thing they want to do. If you like the thing, if you like them, you should just let them do the thing they want to do.
Yeah. So like there's not much I can add to, what all of you guys have mentioned. I personally highly enjoyed the movie, loved the ending. It felt very satisfying, felt very conclusive. It felt, a lot of it's one of those movies that you can definitely feel the love, the passion, the energy behind the movie. It's definitely worth the nearly 10-year wait of this film. It adds a lot of context to not just the previous 3 Rebuild movies, especially the third one, but it also adds a lot of context towards, like, it adds as much context to the TV series as the TV series adds to the experience of watching the 4th movie. And so I'm really happy for Anno to be able to complete his vision, to be lucky enough to complete his vision again, technically for the 3rd time, 4 if you count the manga, which also had its own conclusion just a couple of years ago. And I look forward to everything. I look forward to the future of Anno's work. I certainly look forward to Shin Ultraman, Shin Kamen Rider, anything Studio Kara, and Shinji Higuchi wants to work on going forward. I do kind of see a little similarities between Anno and, like, George Lucas. Both of them are filmmakers who worked on their own smaller projects before each of them creating a big franchise that would go on to sort of consume their entire lives moving forward. But unlike George Lucas, where he kind of sort of faltered when he decided to revisit his franchise, I feel like Anno came at this far better and far more successfully when he decided to revisit and redo Evangelion and be able to sort of remake it for a new generation not a new generation and old generation to enjoy. So it's going to be really interesting to see how future anime fans how they're going to approach this franchise, much like with Star Wars. For some people, do you start with the prequels or the original trilogy, or here, do you start with the TV series or the movies? How are future fans going to introduce themselves to Evangelion moving forward? But yeah, it certainly is a movie worthy enough to cap off the franchise. And you could say I fully endorse the movie for any fans of Evangelion, any fans of Anno's work, any fans of sort of psychological, analytical takes on, like, the human condition, and those who like giant robots.
And robots,
yeah. At the end of the day, giant robots are awesome. So to finally cap, let's see. One last thing I should have mentioned earlier before, creepy live action giant Ray. I didn't know that Anno could disturb folks more than Giant Ray in End of Eva, but he managed to pull it off, making an even creepier Giant Ray.
I loved it.
I loved it too.
Good on you, Anno. You did it. You scarred a new generation of audiences even more this time around.
Oh, this is what you wanted, right? This is what you wanted. You're like,
So, to finally wrap things up, where can people find you, Yoko?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, at Resistance0101. You can find my short films on YouTube at youtube.com/The Resistance Films. I just have a whole bunch of short films there, ranging from action to sci-fi to drama. I also have a personal YouTube channel, youtube.com/The Resistance Rises, where I post, like, fan tributes, trailers, and I am going to upload a spoiler analysis video on this movie there. It's in the works right now, so you can check that out. Thank you guys for supporting my works. It's always awesome to hear your feedback. And Andres, thank you for having me here. What was that, Laura?
I said you have a Patreon.
Oh shit, I do. I keep forgetting. I also have a Patreon that I rarely ever see, but Laura is an amazing.
I'm not one anymore.
It's the same user tag as Twitter and Instagram. Thank you for reminding me, Laura.
Excellent. And so where can people find Laura and Nick if they so choose to?
Okay, we are Review Roulette Podcast. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts on YouTube or any
Apple.
podcast platform like Apple and Spotify and whatnot. And you can find us on Twitter and Facebook as well.
Yes.
And we recently had a Super Mario episode, which was a horrifying nightmare, followed by an upcoming Eve episode, which is very good.
Yeah.
And then another...
which we had Yoko on.
Yes,
which we recorded like 3 months ago.
And Andres has been a guest on several episodes as well.
Yes. And then what is the name of the show that we're going to have? Andres? I can't remember. What's it? Is it review? Pulp review?
Pulp fiction. No, pulp culture. Pulp culture. Pulp culture.
Sometime in the future, I'm gonna force Andres to watch a bunch of like pulp noir movies, so it's gonna be called Pulp Fiction.
No. Pulp culture.
Pulp culture.
And we're gonna,
not the Tarantino movie.
Yeah.
I think the ongoing joke is that neither of
Oh,
us
does that count as a pulp movie?
Is that pulp noir?
I don't know. I just see it. I mainly see it as a crime drama.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out the contingencies of our show, because I really want to watch the Maltese Falcon, which I feel like it should be on there. But yeah, we have Review Roulette podcast is our main outlet now.
Yes.
And then just yelling at Yoko about his Patreon is their other outlet.
And then I also look forward to upcoming Anno movies such as, Shin Ultraman, then Shin Kamen Rider, and then the upcoming unannounced Shin Vampires.
Yes, vampires.
And for anyone who is interested in Anno's older work, I highly implore you guys to check out Gunbuster. It's a 6-episode giant mecha anime with a lot of themes similar to Evangelion, except this was from a time when Anno was not so depressing and was in his fuck yeah moment of his youth. So,
he was the fake it till you make it, and then it was just like, I can't fake it anymore.
The thing you showed us,
Daikon 3 and 4.
I was like, what was the Radish Con? That was the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, also do check out, if you can, it's unavailable anywhere, but there have been like HD remasters shown on YouTube and whatnot called Daikon 3, Daikon 4. These are the first 2 animated projects that Anno and his team made back when it was like an 8 or 12 man team that would go on to form Gainax. So do check out those if you would like to. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on this 3.5 hour epic. I had an absolute blast, and a big thank you so much to Yoko, Lora, and Nick for all being a part of this. I'm really glad that we were able to bring everybody together for this one large epic conversation on anything and everything under the Evangelion umbrella. And it's been an absolute joy to have you guys on the channel.
No, thank you for having us.
I feel like the intro should be like us just clapping like we won. Like,
congratulations!
Congratulations!
Thank you, Pen.
So for the last time, we'll just go in in the same order that you guys promote yourselves. I have been Andres Perez, aka KaijuNoir.
I'm Yoko Higuchi, of Resistance Pictures.
We're still Nick and Lora from the Review Roulette.
and until next time, everybody, take care.
Take care.
It all goes tumbling down, tumbling down.